Ladies and gentlemen, I am Econ Sean. Welcome to my tier list of every single occupation that is available in Revised plus CD. So this is every occupation that is available on Board Game Arena right now, where you can play Agricola. It has a fantastic implementation. I've been loving it. Why am I justified in giving you a tier list? Why should you listen to me? I go by Econ Sean. I have probably about like 150 to 200 games of this, and I am consistently top 10 in ELO and top 10 in Arena as well. So I think I'm pretty good at the game, at least according to my thought. I tend to average around a score of like 50 or so, 50 to 51, and I tend to win about 50% of my games that I play, which is pretty high considering I play only 4-player games. I win a little bit over that. So with that, let's get to the tier list. A couple of caveats. Firstly, I am making this tier list with 4-player in mind. Some things change around with 2-player and 3-player. 2-player games are very cutthroat. 3-player games, they have like a reach shortage, things like that. I'm not as familiar with them. Additionally, we're going to be examining the game without additional action spaces. With additional action spaces, because that adds family growth, guaranteed, you'd expect cards that allow you to build rooms to be a lot higher. You'd expect cards to give you food engines to be higher, and you expect cards that thrive off of 2-room strategies to be a little bit lower, but you can sort of adapt it here and there. But this is primarily 4-player. For the draft format, between draft 7 and draft 9 is what I'm going to aim for, but I'll talk about the differences in different draft formats. Where do I see the tiers, by the way? So A tier you can think of as like the best cards of the bunch, the creme de la creme. These are cards that you're always happy playing, you're always happy picking very highly, you're always building around typically. B tier is either cards that are just like very good by themselves, or cards that may have some variance, but at the high end are very, very good, and at the low end are not very good. So maybe cards that like potentially are powerhouses, but they're not always powerhouses. C tier is more cards that are like mid tier or kind of average or whatever, or maybe cards that like have good effects sometimes and sometimes have less than good effects. D cards are cards that are way situational, and when they're situationally played, they're okay. They're not great. They're good, but not great. They're very situational cards. As a caveat, right, just because something is in a higher tier doesn't mean you always pick it over something in a lower tier or something that's lower in the tier. One thing that's nice about Agricola, it's a very adaptive game. You can build your strategy around various things, and so as a result, that you shouldn't abide by this tier list as it stands. You should be using it more as a reference for like, hey, these are the types of cards that are good, these are the types of cards that are worse, right? When examining, okay, where should I make combos with things, or what types of things should I do, right? This is sort of where I stand on them. It's hard to say in every situation whether a card is better than another one, and a lot of situations there'll be some cards that are better, some cards that are worse. So take everything with a grain of salt, but generally it'll be sorted by these cards I think are better, these I think are worse on average. I'm going to try and average it out, so there might be some cards that situationally are insane, but then every once in a while they're bad. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. The first card is Adoptive Parents. Adoptive Parents, I think, is okay. I think it's like a classic example of a C tier card. It's fine. It's not great. I think that a lot of times people tend to play this card, and like you want to play this card when you're growing to a lot of rooms, but when you grow to a lot of rooms, you tend to have food troubles, and this exacerbates that. You get an extra action or so, but you took an action to play this card. You're not getting the actions back to a lot later in the game. It's a lot trickier to play. I don't have it very highly because of that. There are some situations where it's good. If you can use it 3 times, it's quite nice to get a couple of extra actions, but it's very costly to do so. It tends to come at a big tempo disadvantage to do that, and you tend to have to like have a lot of food, which is very hard to do if you're growing a lot. So I think it's C tier. I think if you're only using this once, you shouldn't play this card. If you are using it twice, it's probably not worth playing either, but maybe. So all right, Animal Dealer is the next card. Animal Dealer is fine. The problem with Animal Dealer is that, like, it helps your feeding problems, which is good. You can take animal pairs that very easily, which is good if you have a lot of spaces and animals are pretty tight. But, like, sometimes you never want to play this card. Like, the fail state on this card is quite nice. Like, is that, like, it just sits in your hand, like, just in case you need animals. But it can provide some pretty good feeding. I don't think this card is, like, great. I think it's sort of like a top of C tier card. Like, it's very far away from Adopted Parents in my mind. But, like, for now, I'll put it in the C tier and we'll reevaluate later. Animal Tamer is quite good. It gives you a grain when you play it, so typically it's like an action for a grain, and then you can also hold animals in your house, which is great because typically animal space early is quite hard to come by. Building 2 stables is a pretty hefty cost. This is a pretty good reason to do that. It's not the best card, but I'm always very happy to have it. It might be like top of C, bottom of B tier. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier for now, right here. I'm going to reevaluate this later, though. It might just be like a bottom of B tier card. It's pretty good. It's pretty good effect. Getting a grain for an Auk is great. That gives you such a nice effect of being able to hold animals. It's really, really nice. So I might value it bottom of B tier, honestly. We'll evaluate later, though. Assistant Tiller is dumb. It is so good. It's clearly A tier. Probably top of A tier is one of the best Auks in the game. Statistically, it has a very high win rate. Additionally, like, the floor on this card is very high, right? Like, using the day labor action to plow fields is so great because plows are so contested later on. It gives you food in addition to plowing fields as well, so it gives you, like, this free plow field action that can't really be blocked by other people efficiently. It gives you that. But then, additionally, if you're comboing this with other day labor strategies, like other day labor cards, it's a total monster of a card. Like, there's so many cards that are not great unless combined with a bunch of day labor cards, and this card is great by itself, and when combined with day labor cards, it's just a total monster of a card. I've seen some very high scores with this. It adds a lot of consistency to your game. It just does everything, and that's why it is one of the best cards in Agricola right now. Baker is a card that, like, you seldom play. Like, typically you don't want this many bake actions. There are very few instances in which you want this many bake actions. So if you do want bake actions, it's nice. I just don't find you want that many bake actions very often. I'll put it in the D tier for that reason. Because it gives you one when you play it. It gives you one at the harvest, at every harvest. But, like, typically, like, even if you have, like, Field Watchman, if you have Field Watchman, like, I like building a hearth with Field Watchman, and when I build a hearth, I only need to sow like twice to feed myself for the entirety of the game. So, like, then I don't really need a baker. But, like, there's situations where it can be okay, I guess, as a failsafe, but I tend to find this card not be very good. Bean Counter, I'm going to be honest, I have not played with this card very much. And it doesn't seem good to me. Every time I've seen this card played, it doesn't seem good. I want to play with this card a little bit more, but, like, in the hundreds of CD games I played, I have never played this once, and it always looks bad. You don't use these action spaces very frequently. I think that I probably put this at the bottom of D tier. I can't imagine wanting to play this card over, like, anything. This might be one of the rare cards that's unplayable, but I want to try it out and see if it's playable. There might be some instance in which it's playable, but I have to test it out. I think it's bad, though. I think it's very bad. But honestly, I have not played with it, but it seems bad to me. Begging Student is very up there with Assistant Tiller. I think it's slightly worse than Assistant Tiller, but it depends on the draft format. In Draft 9 or Draft 10, Begging Student is, like, the best card by far. In Draft 7, Begging Student's significantly worse because with Begging Student, your later Auks are going to tend to be not as good. One of the powerful things about Begging Student is that you can take a lot of more situational Auks later, and those situational Auks you can line up to be really good with whatever strategy you're doing. When you end up with, like, a lot of really wonky Auks that are in the late picks, you can't really sculpt that as well, and so it makes it not quite as good. But getting 6 Auks for free, very, very powerful, and even though it's a begging card, it heavily pays for itself in efficiency. It's one of the best cards. You do have to draft around it a little bit. You can't just pick the best Auks in every pack and expect this card to be good. You have to play around it a little bit because you're not really getting your first, like, your Auks up until a lot later in the game. But if you draft around it, it's very, very powerful. It definitely is a card that every time someone plays it against you, you're just like, oh, what is this person going to do? And whenever you play it, you feel very good about it. So yeah, obviously belongs in A tier. Bellfounder. So Bellfounder, I have a controversial take on, and my controversial take on Bellfounder is that Bellfounder has a few cards that it combos with really well, right? It combos with Clay Deliveryman. It combos with the card that gives you a clay whenever you use one of the 3 action spaces above fishing. I can't remember what that card is yet. It combos with a couple of other things. If you get one of those combos, it's quite good. It combos with like Excavator, Geologist. Thank you. It combos with Geologist, so it combos with those things, and it's good with those cards. Like with if you could get Bellfounder, Clay Deliveryman every time, it would be insane. Like it would be an insane card. Every single other time, I think Bellfounder is like completely unplayable. I think it's unplayable, and like the problem is that if you don't pick Bellfounder highly, if you're planning on playing it, then like someone else is going to pick it in hopes that the combo wheels, but then you wasted a high pick on Bellfounder that you're not picking on anything else. So like the ceiling on Bellfounder is very high. If you get Bellfounder with Geologist is very good. I'm not going to say that's game winning, but I think Bellfounder with Clay Deliveryman is oftentimes game winning by itself. I think that combo is very, very ridiculous. With Geologist, it's not quite as game winning because like you can't guarantee that you get 3-wood over and over again, and the other two actions are not the best. But with Bellfounder, Clay Deliveryman, I'll give it that. That's a very good combo. I think every other time it's not good. So like I'm honestly going to put it like at the bottom of C tier because of that. Like the ceiling is so high, but it occurs so rarely, and having to waste a pick on this early on is just a mistake. So I think on average, Animal Dealer is better. I don't think on average, Adopted Parents is better. On average. The ceiling on Bellfounder is very high. It's very, very high, but it does not happen frequently enough for me to rate it that highly, and as a result, I really don't want to draft it highly unless I know for a fact I'm going to get the Clay Deliveryman, which doesn't happen because people take the Clay Deliveryman thinking that the Bellfounder might come to them. So... all right, Bonehead. Bonehead, so good. It just gives you 6 wood, which is insane. So for that reason, Bonehead belongs in A tier. 6 wood is just so ridiculous. It gives you to it at a good time when you're playing cards, right? Playing the cards out of your hand is kind of a big issue. Like sometimes it can be a little bit delayed, but like I think it's like bottom of A tier, top of B tier card. It's just very good. 6 wood's a lot of wood to get. There's gonna be a lot of these wood cards that are very similar, that I'll rate very similarly. And yeah, I'm ranking the cards within the tiers as well. I'm going to sort everything out at the end and try and rearrange everything. But yeah, everything's going to be ranked within the tier. Bricklayer is like a classic B tier card. This card's very good. I'm never unhappy to get it. It has a lot of combos, right? You can combo it with clay supports. You can combo it with other building cards to be good. It has a lot of combos that are there. Additionally, making the miners 1 clay less is really awesome. There are a lot of miners that are really awkward to play because they have a 1 clay cost in them that are really nice to play when you have a Bricklayer in play. So Bricklayer is like not too bad there. It's very nice, flexible card. It's definitely in the B tier. I don't know where in B tier it's going to be, but it's very good. Now we have Brushwood Collector. Brushwood Collector is a card that lots of people have been overrating classically for a long time. People overrate Brushwood Collector a lot because it's like, oh, it's a wood to 2 read. That's insane, which to be fair, it's like good. But then the problem is that when if you overrate it and you play it in every single game, then it sucks all the wood out of the game, and then it becomes a really bad card because you're playing this, you don't have a plan for wood, and then it's bad. But what I've been observing with this set is that I think that read is actually a little bit tight. There's a lot of different strategies that require building like a good amount of rooms, and there's not really that many cards that efficiently add a lot of read. Like the fishing cards are not great. I don't really like fishing very much. There's not like getting 2 read on action is pretty premium. I think Brushwood Collector is actually quite good in this set for that reason. There's a lot more cards that add wood. There are going to be games where Brushwood Collector is going to be bad, but there's also a lot of combos with Brushwood Collector, right? You can use it with any of the cards that allow you to build rooms easier for good combos. I think for that reason, it's not an A tier card. I wouldn't pick it as highly as something like, as something like Bonehead, unless I have something to pair with it that's good already. I think it's like a B tier card. I think it is slightly better than Bricklayer. I think it's definitely better than Bricklayer. We'll evaluate where it's going to be at later on, but it's a good card. I think that this is properly rated. It's not overrated. It's not underrated here. Building Tycoon. Building Tycoon, I like never want to play it because when you play it and you never get to build a room with it, it feels really bad. But honestly, like I've had this card be super annoying. I go for a lot of strategies that are like really slow to build, and then when I'm slow to build and then someone plays this ahead of me, and then now all of a sudden when I build, they can build too, it just completely blows me out. So like definitely this card is good situationally to completely destroy the growth queue. I think that it doesn't happen very frequently. I think it's It's probably been better than Bell Founder, honestly. I've seen this card more often than I've seen Bell Founder. I don't think it's better than like Animal Dealer or something. But this card's quite powerful. You should not sleep on this card, and you should be always aware that this card exists in a draft if you're trying to play around things, because it can be very brutal and annoying in a similar way that like Carriage Strip is if you time it wrong with the Building Tycoon for someone else. It is very annoying to play because it costs a lot of food, and it like only saves you an action, but like it can jump you ahead in the queue, and for that reason it has a high ceiling, but typically it won't hit that. Carpenter is fine. Carpenter is a card that I see overrated a lot. I'm pretty low on Carpenter in general. I think that like comboing it even with like Brushwood Collector, like 4 wood to build a room is still a lot of wood to build a room. Like in the classic deck that was good enough because the occupations aren't very good, but now there's enough dynamics where I think you can do a little bit better than that. It can be quite good with like Bricklayer to build rooms a little bit more efficiently. Like you can sort of combo these cards together, but by itself it isn't great. And as a combo card, there are many other things that I like better. I think this card is like a bottom of B tier, top of C tier. I honestly would rather have Animal Tamer. I might put Animal Tamer in B tier. Animal Tamer is very good. I think that like maybe I'm doing something like this for now, where like maybe it's in the bottom, maybe it's in like the top of C tier. Like I'd rather have it. I might rather have an Animal Tamer though. Animal Tamer is so great. It like does everything. Carpenter is a card that's like one of the worst building round cards, but it still does discount wood. Like that's fine. It just isn't very good. A lot of times when you play it, it's going to be like 4 wood, which is not great. You can do a lot better than that, than 4 wood for an Ock. Or like 2 wood, 2 clay, which is kind of whatever. So I think if it's that, it's not very good. But it can be a little bit better. Cattle Buyer, which is a card that ironically buys more than just cattle. Because apparently sheep and wild boar equals cattle as well. This card is situationally okay. This card has situations where it's okay. I think that you can play this at the end of the game for like a sheep and a boar, or you can play it for like a sheep and a cow at the end of the game. I think it's pretty good. I think that I would rather have this card than Adopted Parents. Like, it's not great, but like I would rather have it than Adopted Parents. I think Bellfounder probably on average is still better, but I think this card is fine. I think that people don't play this card enough. I mean, really, this card is like 2 free animals, because like people. The one thing about this card that is you have to be aware of is it only works on the fencing action space. It doesn't work on reno fences, which I always forget. But I think still you can get 2 animals with this, and if you get 2 animals with this card for food, if you have a lot of food at the end of the game, it's quite good. I mean, buying a sheep for a food or buying a cow for 2 food is fine. And then some games also, if someone's fencing a lot and this card is like 4 animals or something like that, that's pretty insane. So getting 4 animals off this card is nuts. That can feed you for a few turns or get you breeding pairs or something like that. So I actually think this card's okay. It's not great, obviously, but it's okay. Cattle Feeder is quite bad. This card is quite bad. The reason for that is that like taking grain and buying cow is like they're 2 late game things. If you can line up where you need both grain and cow, it's fine, but typically you don't really need it. It's sort of one of these cards that's like really awkward. Like there's so many better ways to get early cows. This is not a great way to get early cows. It can be okay, but it's not great, because typically when you take grains, you're plowing fields, and plowing fields means that you're not you're not fencing. So typically you can't do it all. So it's like a situational card. I think it's better than Baker these cards, but like it's like kind of close, I think. Cattle Whisperer, speaking of good ways to get cows, this is a good way to get cows. I think that like there are situations where you maybe want an animal heavy strategy, you need ox early. This card can squeeze in. If you have like Milking Stool, this card's a great excuse to do Milking Stool, because it gives you a breeding pair of cows. A breeding pair of cows is worth a lot of points. I mean, typically it's worth, 4 to 5 points by itself, right? It puts you from -1 to either 3 or 4. So like it is a lot of points to get early on. I don't think it's that bad. Like it's in the C tier of cards that like you don't always play it. You can't necessarily plan that far ahead and know that it's good, but like it's okay. I think that I would on average rather have it than Building Tycoon. I think I would rather have Animal Dealer for sure, but I think I'd rather have it over Building Tycoon. Yeah, and I'm going to move stuff around at the end, so we're going to move everything around at the end, but that's about where I feel for now. Charcoal Burner, in the original set, Charcoal Burner was quite insane. Now Charcoal Burner is, I think it's still okay. I mean, it still gives you like at least 4 wood and 4 food every game. The problem with Charcoal Burner is that it comes at really random times. It doesn't come at great times. So like, even though it gives you like 4 wood, 4 food, or like in some games it give you like 5 or 6 wood and 6 food, it comes at pretty awkward times. It tends to come toward the middle or end of the game, which like is still good, but it's not like completely insane. Like you can control some of that yourself if you build a fireplace and then you like upgrade the fireplace to a cooking hearth. That can be really good with charcoal burner. That's definitely a line where you can get like a lot of wood off of it if you want the cooking hearth anyways. And that line's still good. I think it's fine. I think it's like a B tier card. It's not as good as Bonehead, but like this is not a card I'm unhappy to have. I think it is not as good as Brushwood Collector. I'm fairly high on Brushwood Collector in this set. I'm fairly high on it. There's a lot of nice ways to use Brushwood Collector. I'm a little high on it. I think I rank it a little bit higher than Charcoal Burner. All right, Childless. Childless was completely insane in the original set. It's still completely insane. Obvious A tier card. The way to play Childless is that you can do this in a few ways. Like you can go 3 wood starting player, 2 reed, 3 wood, and then Ock grow. That typically doesn't happen because you typically don't get 2 reed and 3 wood. So what the other thing you can do is like play a free miner, in which case you only need 2 wood on your wheel. You can take 3 wood into reed twice. So you can go 3 wood reed, 3 wood reed, Childless grow, and it almost always guarantees that you hit in turn 3. You can almost always do that. With some exceptions, but almost always you can do it in round 3, no matter what position you're in. It's a little bit more risky in position 3 because you may not get 3 wood, and that's rough. But like you can draft a wood ock a little bit highly to try and hit it. It's very good. Getting crops and food early is really nice. Like one mistake that I see people make a lot with Childless is that they try to build the room with Childless early, and then they don't grow immediately with Childless, and it's always a mistake. You should still use the room that you have to grow as soon as possible, unless you have a very good reason not to. But like giving you the crops early, like if it gives you 2 grain of vegetable early, it's so ridiculous. Or like sometimes they'll give you 3 vegetables if you want to go vegetable strat. Sometimes you give you 3 grains, so if you could bake a lot of bread later. Like it's so insane. It's so ridiculous to get that many crops that early. It feeds you for the early parts of the game. It sets you up for a successful later part of the game because you need to build a room to do it. So it just is like very good. So it's there. It's below Baking Student and Assistant Tiller, but not by too much. It's definitely above Bonehead. Chimney Sweep. Chimney Sweep is a card that is really, really good. It is a card that enables Stonehouse strats by itself because it makes renovating to stone a lot cheaper. Typically, getting stone in the early game is pretty hard, so a 2 stone action is very good. Additionally, in 4-player games, it's always worth a point. Always worth at least 1 point. Sometimes it'll be worth 2 or 3 points. So an Ock that saves you stone and as a floor is worth 2 to 3 points is really, really good. It allows for a lot of flexibility. It's both a mid / early and late game Ock, depending on your strategy. It's really good, really flexible. You can do a lot of things with it. It's definitely an A tier card. It's definitely better than Bonehead, and it's definitely worse than Childless. Clay Carrier. Clay Carrier is kind of a fun one. If you have a lot of food, you can get a lot of clay with this card, but it typically doesn't happen. Like, there are a lot of better ways to get clay, but there are some games where you can have this, and getting this much clay can be very good. It's not super frequent, though. Like, a lot of times you don't want to pay this much food for clay. It's not great to pay. Like, you can buy a lot of clay with this card, but, like, it's not great to do that. I think this is, like, a C tier card for me. I think it's around... Like, it's around this level of, like, Animal Dealer, Cattle Buyer. It's somewhere in there. Maybe it's better than Cattle Buyer on average, but worse than Animal Dealer. That's about how I feel about it. Carpenter, I have mixed feelings about, too. I'll get back to Carpenter. Clay Deliveryman is a 1-card combo with Bellfounder and will often win you the game if you get it immediately. Otherwise, without Bellfounder, this card is not amazing. I mean, getting this much clay is fine. The problem is that you can't really... It's really awkwardly spaced out. Like, it's such weird amounts of clay that, like, you know, like, it's a lot of clay in total. Like, it's like 8 clay in total or whatever, or 9 clay, which is a lot. But it comes later on in the game. It's like, what are you doing with this clay later on in the game? It's like, you got to build pottery with it, or, like, maybe you can build a room at some point. Like, it's kind of awkward. It's a little bit awkward of a card to play without Bellfounder, obviously. With Bellfounder, it's very easy to play. But without Bellfounder, it's a little bit awkward. I put this about the same position as Clay Carrier. Because of the combo with Bellfounder, I put it a little bit higher, because if you do get it with Bellfounder, it's the complete Stone Cold Nuts. But without Bellfounder, I probably put it around there just because of the Bellfounder stuff. That's the only reason I put it a little bit higher, but just because it has that nut high scenario. Clay Firer. Clay Firer is a card that is like, it's fine. I mean, it does, you know, like, I put the other card that lets you convert clay to stone in the C tier. I think this is about the same thing. It does give you 2 clay when you play it, which is nice. It has a lot of synergies with the occupation strategies because giving you 2 clay when you play it is nice, and then having a way to turn clay into stone, even if it's not very efficient, can be kind of nice if you have a lot of clay. This is definitely a C tier card. It's probably in the lower echelon of the C tier, but like it's playable sometimes. I think I would on average have this a little bit more than Bell Founder and Building Tycoon. It's like somewhere around there. It's not, yeah, it's somewhere around there. Clay Hut Builder. Clay Hut Builder, on the other hand, like I'm talking about how Clay Deliveryman gives you clay at kind of weird times. Clay Hut Builder fixes that issue by giving you 10 clay up front, and it's only if you reno to clay, which like you can do pretty fast sometimes. This card's amazing if you have a way to reno to clay early or like a reason to reno to clay early. So like with Cottager, this card's insane. Even if you don't have Cottager, like renoing to clay early enough and then playing this for 10 clay can be good. Bonus points if you combo it with something that allows you to convert clay to something else, like converting clay to stone. It makes this card really good. If you have, pottery, this is an obvious pottery synergy. It's very good with rammed clay. If you can like renoing to clay and then playing rammed clay with this takes care of all your fences. Is very good. I think that this card is like a bottom of B tier card. I'm pretty high on this card, honestly. Like I think that like sometimes it's not super playable, but all the time it gives you enough resources for 2 rooms by itself, and that is a lot. That is a lot of resources to give you just for renoing to clay. I think that's enough resources that very frequently it's going to be good to play this card more often than not. And when I see this card, I see a lot of people pass this card late. I try and work it into my plan somehow. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I try and work it into my plan. It's a pretty good card. I think Animal Tamer on average might be a little better, but maybe I'll change my mind on that. Maybe it's a little bit, yeah, maybe it's better than Animal Tamer. Yeah, I'd rather have it than Animal Tamer, honestly. Animal Tamer's good, but I'd rather have it than Animal Tamer. Clay Eater. Clay Eater is a very interesting card. I would rather have... So I'm going to talk a little bit about, like, combos with, like, Grain Seed stuff with... God, what is this card called? Combos with Field Watchman, because Field Watchman there's a lot of cards that combo with Field Watchman, which allows you to plow fields whenever you take the Grain Seeds action space. A lot of those combos are not very good. I think I'm going to get to this later on, but I think Field Watchman is quite weak compared to where people expect it to be, and I think I'm going to place a lot lower than people might expect me to. Clay Eater, I think, is one of the better cards with Field Watchman. The reason is that with Field Watchman, you really want clay early on, and the reason you want clay early on is because clay takes care of your feeding. Because one of the things about Field Watchman that's awkward is that even though you get all these fields like plowed and sown, you still need either an oven or you need a cooking hearth at some point early-ish. Otherwise, you're going to be raw eating too much grain to have made it worth it. And I think Clay Eater fixes that issue. Additionally, getting a wood and 2 clay, even forgetting about Field Watchman, getting a 1-2 clay for an action is pretty good. That is like pretty insane. That's a good amount of resources. It's enough for a carrot museum by itself, which otherwise has really awkward costs. It's enough for a lot of clay plus wood miners, which can be good. Like, I think by itself it's good. It's not a card I'm super happy with. I think it's like a C tier card, but I think it's like higher up in the C tier. I think this card has a lot of value to it. It has a lot of good stuff that you can do. I think this is like in the top of C tier, and this is a more complex game than Ticket to Ride. It's a little bit more complex, so yeah, definitely. Exclamation point Agricola if you're interested in the rules to it. All right, Clay Plaster. We're getting to all the clay cards. Clay Plaster is a card that is like way worse than Carpenter. It's way worse than Carpenter, but like it's still nice. Like it's still a nice card. It's still something that you can like use. That's pretty cool. Like it combos all the clay cards, but it's less good than Carpenter. Carpenter way more flexible, way better. So this card is worse than Carpenter. It's pretty significantly worse, honestly. Like it's pretty significantly worse. Like I would put it like in the C tier still. But I would put it down here-ish? I don't know. I'd put it down here. And I'm gonna do all the chat request stuff at the end, so I won't do that now. I'm gonna put it like down here. I will put... Yeah, I mean, some of these might move down to the D tier at some point. I might move some stuff down to the D tier. Would I rather have this or Building Tycoon? I'll put this here for now. I think this is good here for now. Yeah, I think this is fine. Collector. If you have not played Collector, Collector is quite a powerful card. You can play Collector in a few ways. Collector is actually quite insane with Big Country, I've realized, because it lets you like get resources to reno and animals at the same time, which is just like really nuts. And provides you a lot of point ceiling for that, and so it makes up for itself. But it's also just really good by itself. So one thing that you can do with Collector is that you can fence like you can do a fence action early. You can gather a lot of wood and fence early, kind of similar to you would with Big Country, but with a little bit more animal space. And then you can play Collector before like the end of stage 2 or the end of stage 3, and you can use Collector twice to get 3 breeding pairs of animals. And that is hugely powerful to do. It puts you really far ahead in food. It puts you really far ahead in efficiency, so you get all your crops out of the way. It's very, very strong. If you can get 2 breeding pairs up before stage 3, it typically puts you in a very good position, and typically would guarantee that you score in the high 40s if you execute it correctly. It does take some execution. It's very hard to play with, but it's a card that's quite strong. There's a lot of really good things you can do with it. It's definitely an A tier card. I actually think it's better than Bonehead. The effect is very powerful. You can do so many powerful things with it. It might be worse than Bonehead. On average, it might be worse than Bonehead. Bonehead is like slightly better. Like the thing about Collector is that like you do point cap yourself by taking the beggars, but like sometimes with Collector games, you get so far ahead by collecting when like there's not a lot of food on the board. It can propel you so far ahead. Sometimes you can also play it at the end of the game to just like collect a bunch of resources with it, and it's not super inefficient. It's a very interesting card. It's very good. I don't know where it is roughly, but like around Bonehead, it's definitely an A tier card. You definitely should not sleep on Collector. It's definitely something that is really hard to pilot correctly, though, but it's very good. It's quite good, I think. Conjurer. Conjurer is okay. There are no other traveling players cards to combo with Conjurer, which is very sad. By itself, it's like very okay. I think that it's a card that like is it's in the C tier of like cards that are okay, and I'm definitely gonna have to move some stuff in the C tier because I realize I'm putting way too many things in the C tier. But it's like okay, honestly. Like I think I put it like probably around here. Maybe around here is good. I think it's somewhere around there where like it's better than Clay Deliveryman for sure. It's probably better than Carpenter. I think it's around the level of Carpenter. It and Carpenter are fine. The Clay Plaster I might put a little bit below these two, honestly. It's looking like this is going to be better. Yeah, it's more accurate. We'll do that for now. Yeah, I might move some stuff down to the D tier in a bit. Yeah, maybe I'll do that in a little bit. My C tier is looking a little scuffed here. All right, that's fine. We'll do that later on. Conservator is good. It's very powerful to reno to stone without renoing to clay. Renoing to clay actually takes like a lot of actions. The biggest problem is that you miss out on major minor stuff, but it's quite good. It's pretty efficient to play this and then reno to stone immediately. Like it's super efficient. The fail state on it is pretty good. I think this is like bottom of B tier card. Like this card is always quite nice. I'm never unhappy to have it, but it's like a good card. I'm never unhappy about it. Like it's fine. It just like it doesn't like sometimes it can be good if you have lots of round to stone cards. Sometimes it can be really good, but it's never like that good. It's never like super amazing. But I'm always happy to have it. I'll put it in B tier. Next we have Constable. Constable is a card that lots of people overrate because people remember the days when it gives you 5 bonus points. Honestly, the 3 bonus points cards are, in general, how I feel about them is that giving you the forward early is huge. Like the fact that it gives you forward early is like something that should not be overstated. That forward early is really, really nice. It helps you set for a good game. A forward action is really good. The bonus point part of it, you shouldn't aggressively go for the bonus points part of it unless it is worked into your game plan very naturally. Like if you're sacrificing, you know, like to build a 5th room or like for this card, like to take like oftentimes it's pretty free to go for, but like if you have to like take a like stables action to just make sure you have no negative points in your farm, or you have to prioritize a bunch of worse actions to make sure you have no negative points, like 3 bonus points is not enough to justify ruining your game plan just to go for it. And you should always prioritize your game plan over the 3-point cards. That being said, it is like pretty free to go for most of the time. Like typically it just incentivizes you getting a good farm, which always is good. So like it's a good card. I don't think it's quite A tier. I put it in the B tier fairly highly. I honestly think I value Brushwood Collector above it, but like getting forward for an action is quite good. The problem is that like you want to play it for forward early on. You can play it later on for points, but like what I find is that when one person can get Constable, very frequently other people can get Constable too. So you're not actually giving yourself points. And when nobody can get Constable, then you're not playing it anyways. Like typically games either go in that way where like if it's family growth early, everyone's doing very efficient things, lots of people can score Constable, you're not really hurting anyone by playing it and like by having it in your hand, or not very many people are doing Constable, and like if you can do it and pull it off, it's good, but it doesn't happen frequently enough where I really feel comfortable picking it that highly. So I put it here. It is annoying to be blown up by Constable, but like I really find it doesn't happen very often. There's lots of ways to complete Constable in this set. It is something to be aware of though, because like there are lots of negative point cards, and if you play one of those, you can't get Constable. But like I tend to find I've been very rarely blown out by Constable in the 100 games I played or whatever of CD. Like very rarely it's been points for someone else, and I don't know. I just haven't found it to be that good. It's still 4 wood though, which is fine. Consultant is a fine example of a C tier card. So for me, this always gives me 2 sheep because I always play 4-player. And it's quite good. 2 sheep is quite good. 2 sheep for an Ock is pretty good. I think 2 sheep I rate pretty highly. I think I rated about here. It's a little bit worse than this. I'm gonna put some of these cards in the D tier. I think we're moving some of these down to D tier here. I think I'm moving like all these down to D tier. D tier. I think this is about where my D tier ends, is right about, come on, get in there. Okay, there we go. I think that's about where my D tier ends. I think that's about my D tier, is these are the more situational cards. Bellfounder being that low seems a little crazy, but like honestly, I very rarely see Bellfounder work. It's so unlikely to work. So yeah, all right. Cottager is a card that the ceiling on the card is insane. Every once in a while you'll get like Priest Clay Hut Builder with Cottager, and like you reno to Clay, or like Mantelpiece even, like you can go like Mantelpiece, you can go like Priest, you can do like Loam Pit stuff. Like there is a lot of really juicy day labor stuff. This card can be used in so many different great ways that I pick this card very, very highly. The floor on this card is pretty low. There are some times where you draft this card and you just don't end up playing it, because like even though guaranteeing yourself a build room action is fine, like in the same way that like Building Tycoon, it can give you guaranteed build actions, like Cottager doesn't really pay for itself that much. Like it gives you guaranteed build action, but it gives you a little bit of food for that by itself, which isn't great. That being said, the ceiling on this card is crazy high. I take this card above Brushwood Collector. I might put this card in A tier. I might honestly put this card in A tier. This card has so many good combos with it that like the ceiling on this card is so high, and it enables you to do such busted things sometimes. With this card allows you to like build rooms every time you day labor with the right setup, where like you can just set up the resources to always be able to build rooms when you day labor. I think this card honestly is just an A tier card. I mean, to be fair, like with CD, there's fewer day labor combos, but like the fact that they exist, the fact that you can get to Clay and do Clay stuff with it very easily, the fact that you can build with it, the fact that Loam Pit exists, like all those things make this card really nuts. The fact that other day labor Ox exist too, and I think that it's worthy of an inclusion in A tier for this set. I pick it very highly because it's speculative. There's sometimes I regret that, but sometimes I just immediately win the game through the draft. Cowherd. Cowherd is like the definition of a very situational card. It's like clearly D tier. Like getting additional cow is nice. Like it could be good sometimes, but I'll put it at the top of D tier. I think it's like top of D tier card. Like it's fine. It's a fine effect. Ox are a little bit harder to place correctly than that, but yeah, I'll put it at the top of D tier. It's like very situational, and when you play it, it's okay. It can be good if you need a lot of food. Like it can be good in the way that Animal Dealer is good, but Animal Dealer is a lot more flexible. I'd have an Animal Dealer like almost any day of the week. I'd rather have an Animal Dealer. Cube Cutter. Cube Cutter is a card that's cute. I've used Cube Cutter before. It looks really bad because it's like, okay, why would you want to turn wood and food into victory points? Like that's such a terrible raid. But sometimes you have like not much to do, or sometimes it's like a free Ock begging student that gives you a couple points. Like it can be fine. It can be a fine way of changing like some extra win your supply into some point ceiling. That being said, it's very fringe. It's definitely a D tier card. I would rather have Adopted Parents than it. I don't think I'd rather have Cattle Buyer than it. It's somewhere around here, I think. It's somewhere around there. Cultivator. Cultivator is quite good. I mean, Cultivator is in the same camp as Charcoal Burner, where Cultivator is like wood and food for you throughout the game. But Cultivator, you can control your destiny a little bit more than Charcoal Burner, and for that reason, I like it a little bit more than Charcoal Burner. Being able to choose when you get it is good. It's also very good with, it's good with the plows, too. There's a good amount of plow support. It's very good with plow support. I rank this pretty highly. It's very similar to Brushwood Collector for me. It's definitely above. I probably pick it above Constable. I think it's probably about here. I think this is about where I put it. Domestician Expert. I really like Domestician Expert. So without any additional rooms, it allows you to hold 3 sheep in your house. It allows you to hold 3 sheep in your house, which is like really, really, really good. Holding 3 sheep in your house is like so insane. So like without like I like Animal Tamer a lot. I'm pretty high on Animal Tamer, but you do have to build a room for Animal Tamer to be good. For Domestician Expert, you don't have to do anything to be able to hold sheep in your house. You just pray it, and then you can hold a pair of sheep, and then you can breed it immediately. It's very good. It doesn't give you a grain when you play it, but honestly, it's very good. It's very similar to Animal Tamer. It does a very similar thing. I think it's slightly better, honestly, because you don't have to build the room in order to hold the sheep, but it's very similar. It does a very similar thing. And yeah, so there's also this question of like, okay, how do I compare the wood cards between Bonehead and Cultivator? I think Bonehead is wood faster, and I prefer the wood a little bit faster than Cultivator. Like, Cultivator being food is fine, but I tend to not plow as much early on, and so if you're plowing a lot early on, if you're devoted to that, then Cultivator is a little bit better. But I think Bonehead is just like, it's more wood earlier, and for that reason, I like having wood earlier to be able to spend on things. I like to really accelerate my game out the gate. And so for that reason, I value it a little bit highly. But like, it's very close between Bonehead and Cultivator, like in general. Well, so Constable gives 4 wood, but it has the downside that like you give other people an objective to work towards, and also like Constable, this bonus with the Constable is both a plus and a minus, because when you play this card, if you are not aiming for this bonus, you're going to take a -3 point relative to other people, and that is a cost. That's actually a cost to it. So like, if you're playing Constable and you're going in that specific direction, then it's very good. If you're playing Constable, you're not using the wood for that purpose, then you're going to be in not a great shape relative to the other cards. So it's like kind of close between them. It's a very subtle difference, but yeah, I think I like Bonehead more. Cultivator's more specific to Cultivator's more specific thing. Like, yeah, the wood ox are definitely worth talking a little bit more about and elaborating, but I'm pretty happy with where I have them right now. I think Bonehead's slightly better than these, a little bit tier above the other ones. Cultivator's a little bit lower because it doesn't give you the wood as immediately, and so I think I'm happy with that. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. Excavator. Excavator is a card that a lot of people misplay. Excavator by itself is not very good. By itself, it's not great. It's still fine by itself, but it's not great. With other day labor cards, it becomes a total monster. It gives you a lot of resources. I've never gotten to play this with other cards because people pick this too highly. Like, I've never gotten to work this in my day labor combo, but the resources it gives are like quite good. The biggest problem with this card is that you really want to read somewhere, and it doesn't really give you read. And the stone buying early can be really awkward too. Like, using an action to buy a wood, a clay, and a stone is awkward. This does work with Bellfounder, but I'm honestly not worried about that. It's not great with Bellfounder. I honestly don't think this combo with Bellfounder is great. Like, it turns a day labor action with Bellfounder into 5 food or like 4 food of wood into a stone, and you just play 2 cards to do that. That's not great. That's like okay. I think this card is okay. I probably put this at the bottom of B tier. It's good enough by itself that it's okay. It's better than Conjurer for sure. I'd much rather have this than Conjurer. I think it's like kind of at the bottom of B tier. I might rather have this than Conservator. I think I'd rather have this than the 2 sheep cards, the animal cards. I think I'd rather have Clay Hut Builder. That seems good to me. Field Watchman. All right, so controversial take on Field Watchman is that Field Watchman is bad in this set. I think. Like, the power rankings on Field Watchman I was looking at, basically Field Watchman gets played in like every game, and it wins like 33% of the games. What I found is that when I play Field Watchman, I lose more often than I win. And as someone who wins 50% of my games, that is worse than average for me. The problems with Field Watchman that it has in this set is that there are no combos with Field Watchman that win outright that you're going to get very frequently. It's very good, obviously, with Straw Thatched Roof. With Straw Thatched Roof, Field Watchman is really good. With, like, any other cards, it's not good. Like, there's no other cards that I'm happy to have with Field Watchman where I'm like, I am immediately winning the game. game. With other sets, it's different. But like, you have to put yourself pretty far behind. The only successful game I've had with Field Watchman lately, like the wisdom with Field Watchman is that you're supposed to plow 3 fields and sow with it before the first harvest, and that sets up your feeding for the rest of the game. Which, to be fair, it does most of the time, but you put yourself so far behind in room tempo doing it that you typically are too far behind to do anything. So the one game that I had success on it, I took a 2-read action instead of plowing the 3rd field. That allowed me to accelerate my room growth and let me like get very far ahead, and additionally I had extra clay flowing in. So like I honestly think that Field Watchman is just not great in this set. Maybe when more grain cards are added, it's going to be better, and it is very good at lower ELOs. I think at lower drafts it's also insane. At draft 7, Field Watchman is insane because typically in draft 7 you can't cobble together like lots of synergies, because there are a lot of possible synergies in this set. You can't typically cobble those together in draft 7, so Field Watchman tends to be a lot better in those games where you have a 1-card combo that's a very linear game plan that has a pretty high floor, but in my opinion, a lower ceiling from playing it that way. I want to experiment more with playing Field Watchman like later on in the game and just like doing what you would do with like Assistant Tiller and playing it for like, okay, you just take some grain and fields later on in the game and then you sow it later on. Like, I need to experiment more with that. I think there's some value to that, but I think that people have not figured out how to play Field Watchman correctly yet. I see it lose a lot when it's played. I very seldom see it win. I'm very seldom scared of a Field Watchman game. If you get every single grain card that combos with it, I don't see those games amount to anything very often. I very rarely see a Field Watchman game get over 50, which for me is concerning because I average 50, right? That would be below my average. It's still a powerful card, has a powerful effect. I just don't think that people are using it. I honestly, rating this card is going to be really hard. I honestly might not put it in A tier. I may not put it in A tier because of how low I am on the plan in general. I think it's got to be the bottom of A tier. I would rather have Cottager. I think Cottager does more powerful things. I think you can do more. The ceiling on Cottager is so high. Like, Field Watchman by itself is better, but Cottager, the ceiling is so high. Like, on average, I think Cottager is going to be better than Field Watchman if you draft around Cottager. I honestly feel that way. And Collector, I think, is just better. I think Collector just does insane things. Like, this is a pretty crazy ranking. So why is it worse than Tiller? It's worse than Tiller because of the Tiller combos are so nuts. The Tiller combos, that's a great question. The Tiller combos are so crazy. Like I have gotten like above 60s multiple times with Assistant Tiller. It's completely nuts. The day labor combos are completely insane. There's a lot of day labor cards that are not good, like not great by themselves, but they are insane with Assistant Tiller. And so as a result, Assistant Tiller is just nuts. Also, day labor is less contested than grain. Grain is sometimes a contested action if people want to bake bread, if people have their own grain strats that they do without Field Watchman. Like, grain can actually be sometimes contested. Day labor is almost never contested unless someone else is doing day labor stuff specifically. And so for that reason, also 2 food is better in the early game than 1 grain. It's honestly so hard to do stuff with grain in the early game. It takes a lot of setup, right? You need clay oven, you need a cooking hearth to bake it. It just takes a lot. If day labor cards get split, then it makes Assistant Tiller a little bit worse. But even still, then Assistant Tiller just blocks the other day labor stuff, because then you threaten plow fields on the day labor spot and then serves as a block to that. So like, it's just, yeah, Assistant Tiller is just so insane, and Field Watchman is not quite as good, and the stats I think support that. I think, like, for me, what I've seen at higher ELO tables, at lower ELO tables, Field Watchman is probably still very good, but for me, I think that I rank it a little lower. I think that you should probably pick this card very highly if you're not 100% sure what you're doing. Like, if you're not sure what you're doing with any of these cards, like, you should probably pick it pretty highly. You could probably pick it around here. But for me personally, like, because I know how to abuse the rest of these cards, I probably pick it around here. Bonehead up here is looking a little bit suspect now. Maybe Bonehead should be below Field Watchman. Yeah, I might drag Bonehead down a little bit like this. This looks better to me. Yeah, this looks better to me. All right, I feel better about this. Yeah, the read is also a huge problem with Field Watchman too. Is that like you need like you're not going to get read to build very easily because people take the 2 read action to build, and there's not great read injection outside of straw thatched roof. So typically you're going to be really far behind the building queue. You're not going to tend to build more than 1 room. And Assistant Tiller, you just don't need to play early unless you want to. Firewood Collector, I think that like I underrate this card a lot. I see a lot of people use this card, and a lot of people use this card well. I basically never want to use this card. And the reason for that is that, like, I tend to not take grain very aggressively early or plow super early in the game. And so as a result, I don't really find myself in situations where I get a lot of wood off this card. I think that, like, if you can get, like, 4 or 5 wood off this card, it's fine. But it comes at really awkward times, right? It comes later in the game when you're trying to, like, take grain. Like it comes in, like, stage 3 and stage 4 of the game. Like, I don't think that's amazing. I underrate this card, and I know that, and I'm stating that up front. I think that I'm going to put it in the D tier. For me, it's, like, very situational. I guess that, like, I also don't think this combos super well with Field Watchman. I think with Field Watchman, you want clay more badly than you want wood, but, like, it can be okay with Field Watchman to get a bunch of wood with it, but, yeah, I don't know. There's just something missing there for me. There's something missing with this card. I think for me, I'm going to underrate this a lot. Like, I'm going to put this at the very top of D tier. I think it's fine. I never get into situations where I want to play this. There's just not really too much advantage for me. I feel like I can do better with other things. So I'll put it in the top of D tier. It can be okay for some extra wood here and there, but I'm probably underrating the heck out of it, but whatever. I just, like, never ever end up playing with this card. I don't want to play it later. I don't want to play it earlier than, like, yeah, if you're plowing early, it's better. Yeah, if you're plowing late, it just isn't good at all. It's just like a few wood later on, and it's just not great. If you play it early enough, it's good. But yeah, if you're not planning on plowing and taking grain early on, which I think plowing and taking grain early on, like, can be good with specific strategies, but it tends to not be. And so for that reason, I'd never want to play this. It can be better than a 3-wood action, but the problem is that you don't get the wood immediately. You get it in droves, and that can be a problem. Like one of the reasons the other wood cards are so good is because they give you more control over when you want the wood, or they give you wood and food at the same time. Like Charcoal Burner is good because it gives you wood and food at the same time, and you can control it a little bit. So, all right, Fodder Planter. Fodder Planter is quite good. Fodder Planter is essentially like it essentially is like multiple sow actions. Like, you can play this in stage like 12 or 13, and it lets you sow after the harvest. So, like, at the end of stage 14, you can also sow with it. So, like, typically you can sow like 4 or 5 crops with this if you want to, and that's really good. That is really, really good. That's a lot of points that you can get. It is better than a sow action oftentimes. It's just really, really good. I think that I rate this card fairly highly. I think it's about this value. It's a little bit above all the clay cards, but, like, it's pretty good. It's, like, pretty valuable to do. I think I rated about there. A little bit worse than just 2 raw sheep. I think 2 raw sheep's pretty good, but it's very good. Could be multiple sow actions. Frame Builder. Frame Builder is an interesting one. I have been very high on Frame Builder recently. I think that Frame Builder allows you to do a lot of degenerate stuff. On raw value, it's not actually that bad. Like, building rooms with 3 clay, a wood, and 2 reed is way easier than building a room with 5 clay and 2 reed. Renovating for a reed, 3 stone, and a wood is way easier than renovating with a reed and 5 stone, because you don't have to accumulate a ton of resources. Wood is way easier to get. I think people sleep on this card a lot. I think people underrate this card. It is very useful. It can be used in a lot of really degenerate ways too, right? If you get Brushwood Collector, it can be used with that to be very powerful. If you get, you know, like freaking, there's a lot of cards that can be used to be very powerful. It helps you reno. It helps you reno to stone. It can be good. I think that people sleep on this card a lot. I think this is like the top of C tier for me. Card that's like more fringe, but like it's still very good. Rather have it than a Conjurer. Freemason, very fun card, very hard to play with. I think that like the ideal Freemason game is that you get Freemason with a critical mass of like other cards that make it so that when you run out of stone early, you get an advantage from it, and then you can just like get the stone from Freemason and then use something else. That being said, I think that it's really hard to score highly with this card. I think a lot of times, like if Rhino doesn't flip till round 7, you get screwed with this card. Like I've had that happen. Like when you're playing Freemason, you're just praying Rhino flips around 5 or 6, and I don't like being in that spot. That being said, it is a very powerful effect if you can run out of stone early. But like it's more situational than it seems. But it is a very powerful effect. You can build lots of rooms. You can build lots of majors with it. You set lots of stuff. I've seen some good scores with it, but I've also seen some really bad scores with it. So I think Freemason, like if the stars align, it's very good. But I think it's either a C or a D tier card. I think it's a C tier card. There are a lot of rooms. There are a lot of cards that give you extra rooms too, and that's a very good point about Freemason. That like it also makes it not very good. That like when everyone else is building rooms, right? There's all these cards that allow you to build rooms very freely. Like building late is just not good. Although like there is some merit for Freemason. You know that like if Big Country's so successful, why is Big Country so successful? Well, Big Country also gives you a lot of food, which typically in a room heavy game, food is very starved. Having a lot of food is really good. So like Like, I think that's the difference between those two. I think that it's a C tier card. I think that it's like the bottom of C tier or the top of D tier. It's like something like that. The highs on Freemason are very high, but it typically is very bad. Probably I'll actually put it in D tier. I value it. It is when it's good, it's great. It's good. When it's good, it's pretty good. Maybe it's like bottom of C tier. I'll put it at the bottom of C tier for now. We'll do that, and then I'll reevaluate later.
Hello there.
Furnisher. Furnisher is a card that is really, really nice sometimes. One problem with Furnisher is that sometimes you can build rooms with it. If you play miners with this card is bad. And the reason for that is that if you play miners on your build room spots, you typically eat up all the miners in your hand, and then when you go to Family Grow, you use no miners to play later on. So you want to build majors with this card. Building majors with this card is very powerful. You can build any majors with it. So like you can build, building the well with this card is great. You can build like cooking hearts with it, which is really good. Like you want to build majors with this card if you play it. It's a very powerful effect. The fact that it gives you 2 wood, the fact that it lets you take major actions can be very powerful in some games. That being said, there will be some games where you use it to play miners in hand, and in that case, it's not going to be good. It's going to just cost, like it's going to just accelerate out miners that you were playing out later anyways, which is like fine, but it's not great. I think that this card it's very close to Brushwood Collector, honestly. It's definitely a B tier card. It's a good card. It's just not an amazing card. I think it's like slightly below Brushwood Collector. I like Brushwood Collector a lot. And like most games, like you don't have that many improvements that you want to play. And if that's the case, then this card's not that good. But if you have a lot of improvements that you want that are majors and you have a way to get those, it's really quite good. It's quite powerful effect. But yeah, I'll reevaluate later, as I said. Furniture Maker. Furniture Maker. So speaking of cards that get you wood, this card has... The floor on this card is low. There are games where this card is not playable because you really want a lot of food to play this card because you want to be playing all your ox. Like one thing about this card that's very powerful is it allows you to turn the 2 food Ock action space into basically like I pay an extra food, I get an extra wood. And that's very powerful. If you have a lot of food or you have a way to get Ox, like you have a patron play or something like that, Furniture Maker is a monster and it gives you an insane amount of wood. But like Furniture Maker also has the downside that like sometimes you won't be able to play it because your food situation is not good enough to play a bunch of Ox. And if that happens, it is like a few wood early on. But like honestly, like if this card is like, the floor on this card is that it's like 3 wood, which is not great, but it's fine. The ceiling on this card, I have had this card be worth like, I'm trying to do the count in my head, but like with like writing desk, this card's worth an insane amount of wood. It has combos with like Scholar to be worth an incidental amount of wood. Like this card can be worth like 8 to 10 wood, which is completely ridiculous. So like, I think that like on average, this card is going to be only slightly worse than Bonehead. But like the ceiling on this card is higher than a lot of the cards in this A tier, but on average is slightly worse than Bonehead. I might put it in the B tier just because it requires a few synergies to work, but it's between Bonehead and Cultivator for me for sure. It is really good though. It's really good. It's a lot of wood if you can build around it. If you can't build around it, it's not great. And for that reason, I'm gonna put it with the average there. It can be better than Bonehead, but Bonehead, I think, on average, just a little bit better. It's just a little better on average. Like, Bonehead is just more consistent than Furniture Maker. Furniture Maker has higher reward if you can get the combo for it, but it also has a lower floor, which is that it can be paying food for wood when you don't really want to pay food for wood, because Bonehead also works off miners. Game Catcher, paying a food for a counter borer is really good. This is like a great Ock to pick up. It's really good later on to fill up holes. I mean, essentially, this is like a 4-point card. It's really, really good. It's super duper good. Like Game Catcher is great. I think I'm gonna put Game Catcher in the B tier. I think that I'm putting it in the B tier. Yeah, Game Catcher is just awesome. It's just a really good card. It's definitely a B tier card. Definitely is a B tier card. I think Game Catcher is better than Cultivator. I think I would rather have a Clay Hut Builder. I think that's about where I'm at. I think this is about a good spot for it. Geologist. Geologist, one of the cards that combos with Bellfounder, notably, but Geologist generally not great otherwise. Like, getting extra clay is not ideal. Like, sometimes it can be cute, but those action spaces you're not going to pick up very heavily, so this is definitely a D tier card. I think that it is, like... I'll put it right with Bellfounder. It's a little bit better than Bellfounder, I think, because it has some use on its own. Maybe it's worse than Bellfounder. Yeah, I put it like here. It's definitely worse than Bellfounder, actually, because Bellfounder, the highs are really high, but this card's like only good with Bellfounder, so yeah, I put it like there. I'll put it like there. It's not very good. Greengrocer. Greengrocer is a card that's just like really terrible most of the time. Taking this card is very frequently like one vegetable. If you have a reason to get early vegetables, this card is an okay way to get them. But typically, there's way better ways to get veggies, and like I don't think that it's that good. Like it's not great to play this card and get veggies with it. I think that this card is like a veggie is better than a cow. I will say it's better than like veggie has synergy with sowing. It's like better than that. But like honestly, it's not that good. It's better than a lot of the cards in D tier. Like it's probably about here. It's probably about there. That's about where I put it. It's not great. I mean, it's really not great. It's very situational that you'll need veggies with it. I think this card is like a noob trap. Like this card is like a new player trap. Like new players love this card because it looks like, oh, you get a grain and a veggie. They complement each other. Like they're the crops that you need to sow. But the problem is that like typically it works out to being like a 1 or 2 veggie action, and you have to take grain to do that, which typically you don't really want to do early on. So it's like not really worth it to set up early most of the time. It can be good. There's some situations in which it's a lot better. It's a lot better if you're playing it off of some Ock that you're off of some action that's sort of more free, but I don't think it's great. Grocer is a card that is so good. You have to have a lot of food to make it work, but conditional on you having a lot of food, this card's a monster. It gives you all the resources you need. It gives you read for rooms. It gives you read for reno. It gives you resources for other things. It gives you wood. It gives you all the crops you need. This card's amazing. I think that I'm putting it in A tier. I think Childless is better. I think Chimney Sweep is better too. Chimney Sweep is crazy. Chimney Sweep is really crazy, but Grocer is definitely better than Collector. Yeah, Chimney Sweep and Grocer I might switch later on. I'm gonna have to think about that more. I'm gonna ruminate on that one. I'm gonna let that one soak for a while. Groom is like an okay payoff for Stone Rooms. It's really not a great payoff for Stone Rooms. That being said, like it is fine if you can get Groom into play with Stone Rooms. It's good. But like typically it's like a C tier card. It's like okay. I mean maybe it's like D tier. I mean it's like fine. I mean typically you can like run out of stone, play it later for a couple stables, and it's a couple points if you do that. Like typically you have stables to build, which is fine. So probably I put Groom like somewhere near the bottom of C tier. I think I'd rather have Groom than Freemason. I'm probably moving Freemason down a tier. Yeah, like right there is probably good. That seems good to me, like bottom of C tier. Like, it's okay. It has some okay usage, but yeah, I might move Freemason down. Freemason has been quite bad, but like it has a high ceiling if you can use it correctly. Yeah, I'll move Freemason down. It's unfortunate because Freemason is very fun to play with, but yeah, it's just like not very good, in my opinion. Hedgekeeper. Hedgekeeper is like the worst 3. Like it can be 6 wood. When this card's 6 wood, it's pretty okay. But like the problem is that like you don't really want to build fences twice most of the time. It does have cute combos with it sometimes, but like you typically don't want to build fences more than twice. So typically it's not going to be more than 6 wood. But like it typically will be 3 wood. Like typically you play this card as a backup when you don't have any, like you're short on wood for fences and you really need that. And then it turns the fence action into like a 3 wood plus fence action, which is not bad. Like that's not bad at all. I think that this card's going in the C tier somewhere. It's like an okay card to have. Like I'm fine having this card. I'd rather have this card over all the clay stuff, I think. Over all the clay stuff, but below the fodder planter is good. Honestly, I'd rather have Cattle Whisperer than a lot of these cards. And Animal Dealer too. Yeah, I'd rather have like Animal Dealer than all these cards. And Cattle Whisperer too. Like all these green cards are kind of mopey. They're kind of in the same spot for me. I guess I'd rather have these clay cards than the Builder Room card. Yeah, we'll leave it like this for now. That's fine. Harpooner. Harpooner is a card that people drastically overrate. It's very good if you have a large family. If you have a large family, this card's insane. If you don't have a large family, this card is awful. And you should not play this as your first stock. A lot of people play this as their first stock. It's almost always a mistake. You should be playing this as your like later on in the game when you have 3 family members to fish. Like you shouldn't be playing it early for reed because you don't want to pay a wood for 2 food early on. Typically, it's typically not great. And because you don't want to fish early on for food unless you really have to. Like sometimes you'll fish on 3 food, but like if you play Harpooner, someone else is just going to fish on you, and then you're not getting the benefit from Harpooner anyway. So it's like, why play it? That being said, it's still a card that I don't mind having because if you have a big family, it's really, really good. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. But I'm gonna put it at like the bottom of B tier. I honestly think that like it's worse than a lot of these other cards. It's a card that like it has usefulness that's good, but a lot of times like it won't do much. Also, you can be put into situations where if someone fishes, then ends your game immediately, and I hate being put in those situations. That happens very frequently with Harpooner, so I'll put it there for now. Hide Farmer. Hide Farmer is like situational. It's situational, but situationally it's very good. It is situationally super duper good. Like it can be like, you know, paying food for like 3 points or something like that if you don't have a lot of spaces. Like that being said, it's still like a situational card. Like it's still D tier. Like I think I would rather have it than like all these other D tier cards, but like it's still fine. It's good situationally. Home Brewer is also a very situational card. If you have a ton of grain, this is good, but it's very rare to have a ton of grain. It's very, very rare. I honestly, though, I would rather have this than like a greengrocer. I might put this at the bottom of C tier. This is one of the better cards that you can do with lots of grain. Like 3 food of harvest is not a joke if it's like trivial to you. And later on, you can turn the food into points, which is nice. This card might be more like C tier-ish. Like if you are doing grain stuff, this is one of the better grain things that you can do. I think that honestly it's relatively efficient for it. Like it hurts to convert this like to food, but being able to convert to points later is really, really nice, and not having to have an oven for converting the grain to food is also really nice. I'm gonna put this like right below. I'll put it in D tier actually. I'll put it like right below the Hide Farmer. I think about here is fine. Maybe below the Freemason. No, it's slightly better than Freemason on average. It's very situational. House Steward. House Steward is so good. I mean, typically when you take the wood off of this, like Constable, it's around the same level of Constable. I actually think this might be better than Constable. And the reason for that is that when you play House Steward, you almost always can play House Steward and build a lot of rooms because all the cards that build lots of rooms, like you're using wood to build lots of rooms. Like the problem with Constable and playing it is that you can't always line up your fields correctly. You can, like the wood is good for building a cohesive farmyard, but you're signaling to everyone else that that's what they want to be doing, and so as a result, it makes plows harder to get. It makes everything harder to get. House Steward, like you just want to like you can just pick it when you're building lots of rooms, or pick it when you really need the 4 wood, and then as a result, like also people will go crazy for House Steward points because it's like, oh yeah, it's just an extra room, and they will sacrifice their games to build extra rooms for House Steward points, and like you can always capitalize on that by just like playing a small ball game and like taking advantage of the resources that are on the table if that happens. Like I think people play very badly around House Steward. Like they evaluate very poorly around it. And so for that reason, I like House Steward a lot. It's very similar to Constable for me. The points on it are the same as Constable. So like, and I think it's better. I think it's easier to hit than Constable, and it's the same amount of points. So it's just easier to hit. It's the same amount of points. The signal is easier to draft around. Like it's hard to draft around playing a Constable game because you typically should be doing Constable things in most of your farms anyways. But House Steward, like you can just say, okay, well, if I have these big house cards, well, then I just draft a House Steward and play it, and then I'm going to get these points from it. Like it's very free to do, and it puts pressure on people who are doing small house strategies. So I value it about the same as Constable, but I think it's better than Constable, honestly. I'd rather play House Steward than Constable because I know that I can go in with a plan to get House Steward points. All right, Interior Decorator. Interior Decorator is a card that it is really good. I mean, if you renovate once early and get 6 food from it, it's great. If you renovate twice early and get like you know, you're probably not getting 12 food. You're probably getting more like 10 or 11 food. 10 or 11 food for this card, like it costs you food, so it's more like 9 to 10 food, is pretty good. If you're renovating early, this card is great. It is a lot of food. You can't you know, knock that. So I think that this card's like very good. I'm very happy playing this card. It's like around the level of like Fodder Planter, I think. I think it's like in this ballpark of cards that like I really enjoy having as like, if you're playing it, it's very good. Like if you're planning on playing it, it's a lot of food. It will feed you, especially because Renos, you tend to take these weird dinky majors that don't really give you much food. This card really complements that well. It gives you a lot of food in trickles, and that tends to be a really good way to feed. I'm pretty high on this card. Layabout is okay. It is situationally okay. I mean, there are situations where layabout will save your life, but the problem with layabout is that like skipping the harvest is not great. I mean, it's good if you're. I think there's a lot of games where you grow to like 3 or 4 people, and when that happens, layabout is a lot of like taking a 7 food action is pretty good when it saves you having to feed in a harvest. Like it's pretty good. It's not in trickles. It's all at once. It's all right when you need it. There's a consequence to that, which is that you have to draft this card, but it's a pretty good get out of jail free card. It's pretty nice to have. I think that this card, it's once again like around this interior decorator spot, I think. Yeah, I think this is about this spot. I think it's about there. That seems good to me. And yeah, I'll resort this into tiers later on. Yeah, I mean, layabout has this thing where, like, sometimes in order for it to be good, you have to be bad. But, like, sometimes you get a game where, like, there's just not much food because family growth flips early, and then everyone is growing really fast. It's just a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, I have seen this card be not good because, like, sometimes you play it for, like, not much food, and it's not good. Like, I would not draft this card super highly, but I'm never unhappy to have it in my hand. Like I've never been like, oh, a late layabout, I'm so sad about this. I'm always like, oh, great, I have this get-out-of-jail-free card in case, like, I really need food in one turn, and I can play it and have it be like a 5 or 7 food action when I need it to be, right? If you grow early on, like before round 7, a 5 food action is pretty good. A 5 food action is really good to have, like, in the bank, just as a food action. Like, it's pretty good to have before round 7 if there's no food on the board. So I think it can be quite good. Livestock feeder. I'm actually a little higher on livestock feeder than I was. There are some, you don't have to have a lot of grain for this card to be good. With 2 grain, this card holds an animal pair. And so if you have an extra grain floating in your supply or an extra stable, you can use this card to hold animal pairs, and that's very powerful. Being able to hold 1 animal pair is very powerful. Granted, you can't do anything with the grain until you sow it or something like that, but I think it's okay by itself. It's a little bit fringe, but like, I'd rather have it than a hide farmer. It gives you a grain when you play it. How bad can that be? And allowing you to hold animals with it is great. I might rather have it than... No, I think it's like in the top of D tier. I think that's about where it is. It's situational. It's not a great effect, but like it can hold animal pairs, which is nice. That's a nice effect. Lutenist. Lutenist is it's the definition of situational. It is not bad. Like, getting veggies off of it is not bad. You shouldn't build a strategy around getting veggies around it. And like, it's more playable than a lot of other cards in D tier. Like you will get a couple wood off of it and a veggie. You know, you'll have to pay some food for the veggie. You might get the second veggie. Like, it's fine. It's good when there's a conjurer in the game. It might be a little bit better if you can get 3 wood, 3 food off it. But it's not a great effect. It's like an effect that like can in a clutch save you. Getting the veggie off of it is really nice sometimes. I think this is like another top of D tier card. I think it's better than Hide Farmer on average, but I think it's worse than Livestock Feeder. Manservant. Manservant is a card that is quite good if you run out of stone early. If you run out of stone early, this card is a big payoff for that. It's so much food. Like it's a ridiculous amount of food. It's like 12 to 15 food in the late game is really not a joke for 1 card. Like, it's really, really good. I think that typically it's pretty worthwhile to play. It's kind of in the same spot as Interior Decorator for me, where like you play it, it has a really nice effect. It's very good, but like you're not going to play it every game. But like if you do play it, it's very good. I think that it's better than... Yeah, I think it's like in the C tier at the top of C tier. I think that I would rather have a Manservant than a Frame Builder, but it's kind of close between those two. That's about where I'm at on that. Market Crier. Market Crier is a card that many people use wrong. The way to use this card is to play it late in the game when you have neither grain nor veggies, and other people might have grain, might have stuff going on. You play it, you collect your 2 grain and 1 veggie once, and then you sow with it. And it is efficient if you do it that way, in that it doesn't really help other people. But if you play it early and give a bunch of people a grain, you're asking for a bad time. Like, people are going to take your ovens, people are going to take other things. That being said, playing this late and using it to fill a gap is good, but you should only use it that way. You shouldn't use it early on unless, like, you have something really crazy happening. But I think that very seldom I've seen this used early and be good. I think this is a D tier card. I think it's above Lutenist. I think it's more good than Lutenist. It's more, yeah, like, honestly, like, when you play it and use it in the late game, it's quite good at filling that gap. It's quite good. 2 grain and a veggie, sowing that is really nice. It saves you an action on that in the late game at the cost of giving everyone else a grain, but that's pretty good. And then sometimes you can use it a second time to feed if, like, no one else can benefit from the grain. Like, you have to time it. It's a late game card. It's not an early game card. Mason. Mason is A tier card. Mason is so good. I don't know where in the A tier it's going, but Mason is incredible. Building 4 stone rooms is something that's really nice to do anyways, and giving you a 5th room for a 5th family member is essentially giving you the room, which is worth 3 points, and then you get to family grow into it, which is another 3 points. So it's typically worth an insane amount of points. I think that it is better than Chimney Sweep, but not better than Childless. Childless is so insane. I think it's better than Chimney Sweep here, though. I think I value it more than Chimney Sweep. It's very good. The effect is very good. It gives you so many points. It gives you a 5th room. Worth noting that, like, House Steward shows up very frequently. It's very good against House Steward, right? Like, it's good when you have 5 rooms, too, because it builds a 6th room in stone. Like, it's a very good card. Really, really good. Master Bricklayer. Master Bricklayer is so situational. I almost never played this card. Because whenever I do, someone else takes all the majors because people love to overvalue majors. And so, like, I almost never end up playing this card. Like, this card can be a blowout. There are situations where this card is a huge beating when no one else is building majors. But very rarely I find that to be the case. I think that Master Bricklayer is, like, a C tier card. Like, it's nice to have in the back pocket because on the off chance that you do play it and it's good, you are probably going to win if it's good enough because you're just building all the majors for free and there's nothing your opponents can do about it. That being said, it's like kind of awkward because the majors don't really feed you very well if you have a big family. So, I mean, maybe it's a D tier card. It's like a just-in-case backup card, but like it has a really high ceiling if you can play it. I probably rate it below Groom, honestly. Like, I play Groom more frequently than I play Master Bricklayer, and Master Bricklayer is never that good for me. It's like a couple stone sometimes, and very rarely it's a bunch of stone, but like most of the time it just sits in my hand dead, or I play it and it does nothing, or like I play it, someone jacks my major, because they're like, oh, you have Master Bricklayer, I better play my majors now, so... Master Builder. So Master Builder, worth noting that Master Builder, great counter to House Steward. Master Builder, very, very good against House Steward in the draft, because if there's a House Steward and you have Master Builder and you just build up to 5 rooms, then you play House Steward or Master Builder, then you get to 6 rooms and you get to destroy the House Steward person. That being said, I mean, it's essentially like a 3-point action. It's like a 2 or 3 point action in the late game, which is pretty good. I think that's pretty good. I tend to rate that in like I think it's better than Manservant, but it's similar to Manservant, I think, in power level. Maybe it's like around here, like a little bit worse than Frame Builder, but not by too much. It's somewhere around there. Like it's a good effect. Like a 3-point action later on in the game is pretty good. You have to build around it a little bit. Building to 5 rooms is kind of hard, but like it's pretty good. And it goes up by the fact that House Steward exists. Like House Steward existing makes it a lot better. So I tend to rate it around there. Merchant is a card that is very situationally useful, and it can be very good, but it's good with Stork's Nest. It's very good with Stork's Nest, because Stork's Nest, you don't get to play a lot of majors and minors, but like typically it's not very good. Like it's a very situational card. Typically it's not very good. Clear D tier card. I put it around here, I think, a little bit above Freemason. Millwright. Millwright is so interesting. I don't really think... I've seen Millwright played a couple times in very interesting ways. If you have to have a lot of grain for this to work. If you do have a lot of grain, this card is very, very good. Being able to build... I mean, one of the parts about Field Watchman Right is that like one of the downsides is that you don't have reed to build rooms. Well, this card fixes that. This card fixes like you not having stone. Like this card gives you something good to do with reed. It's very good with Field Watchman. It's good. There's some other grain strategies that you can do where this is pretty good. It gives you a grain when you play it. How bad can that be? That being said, I think on average it's better than Master Bricklayer, and there's some fun stuff you can do with this. If you just like take a bunch of grain so early, you can do some good stuff with this. Like the grain being 2 resources, like a grain being a resource is not a joke. It's actually a pretty legit effect. That being said, I think that it's somewhere around here. I might move these down to the D tier. I may just like do... I think Groom being bottom of C tier makes the most sense, but I'll rearrange that later on. Mushroom Collector. Mushroom Collector is like so good when you're planning on building a lot and you have cheap rooms, and it's so bad like every other time. There's a couple of Mushroom Collector combos with like some other cards. Like there's a couple of combos that exist, but typically Mushroom Collector is not worth playing. Like sacrificing wood for food is good when you're doing it over and over again in the early game because you want to take wood so frequently. But the problem is that at a certain point, you're sacrificing too much wood, which is costing you too much value. I do think Mushroom Collector is good, though. I think that I probably play it a little bit less than I should, but like when you play it, it's typically pretty good. I typically am never unhappy playing the Mushroom Collector. It's just you have to really pick when you're playing it, because if you are setting yourself behind really far in wood tempo for food, like that can be really bad. That can hurt your ability to build. But you gain a lot of food early on with this, and you can combo it with some. It has some cute combos with it. I think that it is like around the level of like Hedgekeeper or something like that. Like it's somewhere in this tier where like the ceiling on this card is actually pretty high. Like when this card's good, it's really insane. Yeah, I think around here is good. I think maybe it's like slightly worse than Hedgekeeper, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. Organic Farmer. Organic Farmer is a card that very, very frequently will give you like 2 bonus points at the end of the game, and it can sometimes give you 3. And I, for that reason, that is really, really good. It's a lot easier to do than Master Builder 2, and that's worth mentioning. That like it's similar to Master Builder in that it's like 2 to 3 points at the end of the game if you build around it, but it's way easier to build around than Master Builder. And like the effect isn't as pronounced of like, okay, I get a room and I don't, you know, it doesn't contribute to like your frickin' your bonus point card, right? Your house steward, but it's still pretty decent. I think it's a little bit better than Master Builder, honestly. I think it's a little teeny bit better than Master Builder. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of a D tier. I think, or the bottom of B tier. I think this card is like very good. Like very frequently, like you get point capped, and this card fixes like some issues with that when you can't get animals. I think that very frequently this card's worth points at the end of the game, and for that reason, I put it relatively highly. Oven Firing Boy is a combo with like bake strats if you have a lot of reasons to bake, but very frequently I find that you don't have to bake very often. It's clearly worse than Baker, so I'll put it down here. Yeah, Baker might be a little bit better than a couple of these cards. Like Oven Firing Boy is way too situational. It's very situational, like you will play it sometimes. Maybe these cards are a little bit better than a couple of these. Like maybe like here is better. Yeah, maybe like here is a little bit better. Yeah, we might move stuff around a little bit later on, but I think there is a little bit better. Papermaker I absolutely love. The reason I love Papermaker so much, by the way, so like looking at this like with CD deck, there are a lot of occupations that there's a lot of cards that support playing a lot of occupations. There's like writing desk, there's bookshelf, there's bookcase, there's furniture maker, there's things like that. There's begging student, and with all those cards, Papermaker is quite good. Turning. So if you play it as your second occupation, then you're turning 5 wood into 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, which is 20 food. So you're turning 5 wood. Oh wait, I can't. That does not sound correct to me. Wait, is that correct? Is it 20 food? 5 wood into 20 food. 2, 3, 4. 2 plus 3 is 5. 4 is 9. 5 is 14. 6 is 20. Yeah, into 5 food. So you're turning 5 wood into 5 food. 5 wood to 4 food apiece. Sorry, that's where I did the math wrong. 5 wood to 4 food apiece. That is pretty insane. That's a really insane rate. And like it is a lot of food. One of the problems with Papermaker is that later on, it gets a lot worse because like typically you have your feeding engine set up and you're like your last Ock, you don't really need like 6 food off of it or whatever. But it's very powerful. You should not sleep on it in this set. People underrate this card very, very heavily. I don't think this card is like this card might be like bottom of B tier for me. I think that honestly there are a lot of situations where I want this card. There's a lot of Ox support. I like playing lots of Ox. I would rather have this than Harpooner most of the time. Harpooner is an easier card to play. I think this is better than Harpooner. I think it's worse than the animal cards. I think it's about there. This is definitely a lot higher than other people rate it, but in this set with all the Ox support, I think it's quite good. It's quite good. It's a lot of wood into food. I think it's better than Harpooner in that regard because playing Ox also cascades into other things, which is good. There is a problem though that you need a lot of wood to make this card work, but if you can get the wood, it's quite good. It might be a little bit lower, but I don't think that's that bad. I don't think that's that bad at all. Pastor, very situational card. Typically, you can draft this card and then like say like, oh yeah, I just play this Pastor if I just play this Pastor if you know things work out. I think that Pastor is like it's not quite a D tier card. It's a lot more playable than D tier. I think that I put it around like the groom level. I think it's around here. I think it's around there. Also, so Organic Farmer lower than Game Catcher. I think Game Catcher's just better. I think Game Catcher's like so frequently 4 points, and Organic Farmer is like 2 to 3 points. Like I think that Game Catcher's a little better. But I mean, it's a good question. Like they like Game Catcher does fill gaps that you could otherwise get from the board, whereas Organic Farmer doesn't. So I think that seems right to me. Yeah, I think that I'm fine putting Passer about here. It's like an okay card, and it's very good if you can trigger its effect. It's just you don't get to trigger it very often. Patron. So I said Papermaker is good because you get to play a lot of Ox with it. Patron is insane. Clear A tier card. I don't know where in A tier it goes. I think Patron is honestly better than Field Watchman. It's better than Kaiger. It's better than Childless. I think it's better than Grocer and Chimney Sweep. I like playing lots of Ox. It's very good. There's lots of Ox combos in this set. I think about here is where I rank Patron. It might be slightly better than Mason. Patron versus Mason is very close. I have to ruminate on that more too, but I think it's better than Chimney Sweep. But I don't know if Mason's better than Chimney Sweep. Something like this. Patron's just so strong. But you have to be playing your Ox. If you're not playing your Ox, then forget Patron. Just leave it at the door. Play something else. But if you're playing lots of Ox, which I tend to do in these games, Patron is so strong. There are a lot of Ox that are like you'll notice that like the Ox are like pretty bottom heavy, but like a lot of these Ox are like cards that you can really build around in a way. And so if you're building around this like very cohesive strategy, Patron's so good to allow you to play those Ox. It combos with lots of things. So I tend to draft that card pretty highly. And yeah, for good reason. It's very good. It's a lot of food. A lot of food right when you need it. Oh, I didn't switch to Patron. Sorry about that. Papermaker, or Pattern Maker, sorry. Pattern Maker is a cool card. I mean, this card's really great. If you have a lot of wood, this card's awesome. Turning wood into grain and bonus points if you have a lot of wood is insane. And like typically 2 wood is like, you know, it typically equates to a bonus point anyway. So like getting extra stuff for it is awesome. And doing it for free on a card. If you can get 2 grain, 2 bonus points for this, you're in business because then you could sow 2 grain and it's awesome. I think I like Pattern Maker quite a bit. It's a situational card, but it's situational in a way that's like so good. I think that I would rather have it than all these weird, awkward clay cards. I think about here, a little bit below Animal Dealer. I think Animal Dealer is maybe slightly better, but somewhere around there is good. I think it's quite a good card. Pet Lover. Pet Lover is good and identically a game where you have a lot. It is a card that gives you a lot of food. It's good with a lot of actions and good with very low, it's good with very low food games. It adds a ton of food. The grain's really nice. It just like adding food is really good. There's definitely a lot of value in that. It's a pretty good card, honestly. It's definitely grown on me. It's not a card I play super often because people tend to pick it highly. Like I think that people play it a little bit too early, which is a mistake. I think that you want to play this card a little bit later, but like it's quite good. It's quite a lot of food. It's very efficient to do it. You can do it multiple times and it's good. Like you don't want to do this more than like 2 or 3 times, but like honestly it can set up a lot of really nice stuff. So it's still worse than Animal Dealer, I think. I think I'd rather have Animal Dealer in general, but I think I might. It's about Papermaker level. It's like about here, I think. I think about here is good. Getting harder to place things as we get deeper. Pig Breeder. Pig Breeder is the definition of situational. Basically, this card's always a pig. It's just a pig. How good is a pig? Yeah, I think it's like a D tier. It's like top of D tier. It's better than these other cards, but it's like top of D tier. Plow Driver. Plow Driver, great reason to be in Stone. It is surprising. Stone strategies are surprisingly not great. It's very good. I mean, this card's very good. This card's like the reason to be in Stone early. It's very obviously it's like borderline A tier card, but like the problem is that like there's not many other good reasons to be in Stone. Like there's Scholar. Scholar is awesome. I really like Scholar a lot. Probably I put this in A tier. When you play this card, when this card pops off, it's so good. It's so insane. The problem is that it doesn't pop off super often, but like when it pops off, it's pretty good. It probably is an A tier card. I think it's better than Cultivator, Brushwood Collector, like all these cards. I think it's just slightly better on quality. The problem is that it doesn't pop off super often, but I think I put it here. Maybe I should put it above these Wood Ox. I don't know if I rated above Furniture Maker or anything else. I think Field Watchman's just better. Yeah, I think about there is good. About there is good. Plowmaker. Plowmaker, such a good card. This card's so good. I mean, it gives you the fields when you need them, which is when you're plowing. Like, typically it's like 2-3 fields for an Auk and some food. It's very good. I think on average, actually, this card's a little bit worse than Field Watchman. But is it worse than Field Watchman? Yeah, it is worse than Field Watchman. Field Watchman's a little bit better, unfortunately. It's just hard to make Field Watchman work. This card's so flexible, though. Like, like Field Watchman, I think if people played it in a more flexible way, I think it would perform better. I think that it is... Rendering a stone is, like, a lot harder to do. That's my biggest problem. The floor on this card is, like, quite high. Yeah, I might put it, like, right below Field Watchman, honestly. Like maybe it's below the 2 wood... Actually, maybe it's below some of the wood cards. And Plow Driver is super efficient. Yeah, I'm going to put it down here, actually. I'm going to put it down here. I think that like, Brushwood Collector, I still think I rank pretty highly in this set. I think it's a little bit better. Plowmaker is, like, such a good backup card to have. Like, it's very good. Yeah, I put it down there. I'll put it down there. That seems reasonable to me. Plowman. Plowman is okay. Like, it is a good way to get fields. I like it a lot. It costs a lot of food, and it comes at, like, mildly inconvenient times. I'm going to put this in the B tier, but a lot lower. I think this card's very good. Maybe it should go in C tier. Yeah, I don't know about Plowmaker over Organic Farmer. I feel like this card is like pretty good when you play it early on frequently. Like, it's pretty frequently good. It's definitely worse than Organic Farmer. It's better than Manservant. Yeah, so that seems like a good spot for it. We'll put it right between Organic Farmer and Manservant. I'll figure out the tiers later. But yeah, I'll put it like the very bottom of the D tier. It's a lot of fields. It's pretty efficient to do, so it's pretty good. Porter. Porter's a card that I have not used very frequently. I think Porter, a lot of people get sucked into the mini game of, like, trying to hit Porter as many times as possible, and typically is a mistake. But, like, honestly, it's like 3 to 4 resources and 3 to 4 food. It's, like, kind of similar to Charcoal Burner in that way. I think it's a little bit worse than Charcoal Burner, but I think it's still a B tier card. I think this card I sleep on a lot. I don't play this card a ton, but I think it's still a B tier card. It's still quite nice. I think I would put this... I put this a little lower than other things. Like, I put this between Papermaker and Harpooner, I think. I think that's about where I put it. I like Papermaker a little bit more. I like it a little bit more than Harpooner. So, yeah, that seems about right to me. Potato Harvester. This card has grown on me a lot. This card looks like it's like, oh, yeah, it's like 3 food for nothing. It looks fine. The thing about Potato Harvester, though, is that if you have a veggie strat and you sow veggies, this card can like, getting 3 food immediately on an Auk is really nice. Like, that can save you sometimes when food is really tight, which it can tend to be. And then getting the veggies off of the field, like, I've had this card be like 9 to 11 food before because I was sowing veggies in fields a lot. This card can actually be an insane amount of food, and it gives you food up front, which is quite good. That being said, it's not a card I'm super excited about taking, but I think it's like this top of C tier. It's pretty good. Oh, and also, yeah, good question about Porter, by the way, about it combining with Woodcutter. It does not combine with Woodcutter. The things that you get have to be from the action space, so there has to physically be 4 things on the action space for you to trigger it. So that's another place where people get tricked by it. But yeah, Potato Harvester can be good. I think it's like about here. That seems about right to me. That seems about right. I actually think this card's great. It's pretty good. It can give you a lot of food, but yeah, it's not like amazing. It's not an amazing card, but it's good. Priest. Priest has a really, like, when you can play Priest, it's super good. Like, when you're in Clay, this card basically gives you the resources to immediately build a room, and it gives you 2 stone to build improvement, which is insane. That being said, if you're playing this card, like, very frequently, you have, like, if Rhino flips first and you play this card, you're in business. If you have, this is why Cottager is so strong, why I pick Cottager so highly, is because Cottager Priest is, like, completely insane. It just gives you all the resources to build. You get a bunch of stone with it. It's completely nuts. That being said, it's not a card that's going to be good super frequently. It is a card that I like. It's like a B tier card, but it's like very bottom of B tier, I think. I think it's a card that is like, it's good. It's a good card, but like it's very frequently not going to do anything. If you build your game plan around it, you can get punished unless you have Cottager. With Cottager, this card's a monster. With Cottager, this card is like freaking A tier, but without it, it's fine. Without it, like it's not great, but on average, I think it's going to be about there. Puppeteer. Puppeteer is so I talked about cards that combo with Ox. People sleep on Puppeteer. Puppeteer, because you're paying the food to your opponents, it typically will trigger 3 times. It will typically trigger 3 times. So effectively, this card is pay a food for 3 other Ox in addition to Puppeteer throughout the game. Like, you don't get to control it. That's one problem, is that you don't get to control it. Sometimes it will only be 2 Ox, but still, paying an Ox for 2 Ox is pretty good. Like, it's saving you an action here and there. You have to pay a food for it, but it's saving you an action. That's pretty good. The floor on this card is very high. The ceiling is really high if you can play 3 or 4 Ox off of it. I honestly think this is an A tier card. I think Field Watching is better. Field Watching is sort of like my baseline of like, okay, I think Field Watching is like the broken card. I think it's like, I think I'd rather have Puppeteer than any of these other cards, honestly. I think Puppeteer is that good. There's so much Ox support in this set, and it really combos well with that. I would rather have Puppeteer. I think Puppeteer is very, very good. You do have to play around it. Like, you have to be a little careful, but like, if you can play around it, it's total monster. So I think about there is good. Reed Roof Renovator is like the definition of a very situational card. I have played this before to get a couple read with it, but it's very bad. It's really bad, but like it can get you some read. It's like down here. It's like worse than Geologist, I think. I think it's worse than Geologist. That seems about right to me. Resource Recycler. Resource Recycler is randomly completely insane. Randomly, it's completely insane, and then most of the time it does nothing. You have to build your game around it a little bit, but like randomly it can be pretty nuts. It's very situational. It's very, very situational, but like don't sleep on this card. If this card like hits, then it's really a monster. I think that I put this like at the bottom of C tier. Like probably it's a little bit better than these cards, but it's like around this zone. Well, so the thing about the traveling players thing though is that maybe the Puppeteer I should talk about a little bit more. The thing about it is that because you pay the food to the other person, like if you play this card before the 3rd turn of the game, it turns a 3 food action for them into a 4 food action, which is nuts. A 4 food action early on is really nuts. So if people don't want to take traveling players to screw you out of it, that's fine. But eventually someone's going to realize that like, hey, this is a 4 to 5 food action. It's really good. And for that reason, you can typically get traveling players taken 3 times. Like it is a natural synergy with itself in that it incentivizes other players to take traveling players. They shouldn't not take traveling players to not take a food, because at the end of the day, Agricola is a 4-player game. If you're denying yourself a food to deny another player an action, if everybody's included on that, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you're going to be incentivized to take the Puppeteer food, and it's great. Yeah, I mean, if there's a lot of food in the game, Puppeteer's not very good. But like, if people decide to not take it, if people have a lot of food set up, then it's really good. But it's typically 2 to 3 Ox, and that is good enough by itself. If it's only 1 Ox, it still replaces itself. It's like you paid a food for nothing, and that hurts a little bit. But it's not that much worse. But yeah, I mean, in higher ranking, if food's tight, then it's going to get taken three times, and that's insane. As long as you have the food lined up. Roof Baluster is completely insane. Roof Baluster is A tier card. I think I rank Roof Baluster. It's close between Roof Baluster and Cottager. That's about where the line is. Guaranteeing that you can reno. I think it's better than Field Watchman, honestly. I think I'd rather have a Roof Baluster than a Field Watchman. It's very close though. Like Roof Baluster guarantees that you can reno to stone, which is insane. Like it's very good to do. It's a very good safety valve to have. You got to be aware of Roof Baluster, by the way, if you're ever playing against someone who is like, oh yeah, like Roof Baluster, like oh they can't reno to stone. I get my reno, and then they pop a Roof Baluster out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden you can't reno anymore. Like it's a very annoying card to have around. It's really, really like key to keep in mind. Like I think that honestly it's like pretty good. I might rearrange this a little bit. I think honestly actually I like Cottager better than this card, and I like Roof Baluster better than this card. I think that's about where I'm at. And I think that like Collector and Field Watchman are like pretty comparable. Maybe Field Watchman's slightly better than Collector. But honestly, Collector's so good too. I don't know, Collector's so good too. They're about the same. This is about right. I think this is about where I'm at with that. But yeah, I love me some Cottager. I like Collector too. Collector's also very good, but Roughcaster, very situational, like such a situational card. But like it honestly is good if you build 3 clay rooms with it, and it's 9 food. 9 food's a lot of food. 9 food's a lot of food for things. Like 9 food is a lot. If you're only building 2, like, and you can run it from clay to stone too. That's like 12 food. 12 food's very good. That being said, it's not very frequently going to be good, so I put it about. Yeah, about here is good. Below Hide Farmer. That seems good to me. But yeah, it can be insane. It can be very good. And yeah, Collector can be insane. I mean, Cottager can be insane too. Like, all these cards are good. Like, Root Baluster just has such a consistent, like, floor to it. Like it's so good. Like, at worst, like, it just guarantees your Reno. It's so good. Or it just builds you a Major. Like, that's fine too. Like, it's just a very good card. Schnapps Distiller, very situational card, but if you are feeding with veggies, it's very good. If you're feeding with veggies, this card's insane. I think that this card belongs at the bottom of C tier. I think Schnapps Distiller, on average, is going to be better than, like, a lot of these cards. But frequently, you're not going to be playing it. Frequently, you're not going to be playing it, but it can be better than a lot of these cards. I think I would put it about here. Something like that's fine. These clay cards, I might have to rearrange. The clay cards are a little bit awkward. I might rearrange them. Scholar, so Scholar is one of the good reasons to be in Stone. There's a lot of combos with Scholar. I mentioned there's a lot of Ox support. All the Ox support cards work really well with Scholar, and so it's a really good reason to be in Stone. That being said, like, you can get trapped in a lot of Scholar games of, like, Renoing to play Scholar and then playing, like, it's a very fun card to play with. Like, I play with Scholar a lot because it's very fun to play with, but a lot of times you can get trapped of Renoing to Stone and then not having that much to do. My heart wants to rank this in A tier. I think in reality, this is just like a high B tier card that, like, has, if you are competent with it, is a lot better. Like, if you have a competent draft, like the ceiling on this card's insane. I think that the reality of it, though, is that, like, in reality, it's probably just a high B tier card. Like, it's definitely worse than Plow Driver. Plow Driver is just consistently insane. I think that I'm going to put it around here. Yeah, the very top of B. But yeah, Begging Student's insane, obviously. But, I mean, it's still a good card. Like, it allows you to play Ox, it allows you to play Miners. Like, it's still pretty good. If you can build around it, it's nice. But, like, it's not the best. I'm probably overrating it a little bit here. But it's still good. There's a lot of Ox support. It really is great if you can run out of 3 stone rooms and then play it. Like, it can do a lot of good stuff for you. That being said, I don't run with it super frequently. I'll move it down a little bit. I think that, honestly, like, I think this card's a lot of fun to play with. I probably should move it down a little bit. I probably enjoy the fun of that card a little bit too much. It's a very fun card to play with. Scythe Worker is very situational. It's a grain card that lets you plow. I rate it about here. It's like with the other grain cards, but, like, I think that harvesting is not the best card or the best thing to do. So I put it there. Seasonal Worker. Seasonal Worker is a card that is also a new player trap. I will say, if you need early veggies, this card is one of the best ways to get early veggies. Not one of the best ways to get early veggies, but it's a very good way to get early veggies because typically you will need a food action anyways. So taking Day Labor a couple times, so in round 6 and 7 to feed and then get veggies as a consequence is pretty good for that. By itself, though, it typically is not great. If you don't have other Day Labor cards, this card is not very playable unless you have early veggie stuff. That being said, the Day Labor combos with this card are nuts. You have to keep that in mind. Anytime you pass this, you got to be really careful that you're not passing this to an assistant tiller person. It can typically end the game immediately if that happens or very close to that. It's very scary to play against. So, like, you got to be careful with this card. For that reason, I'm putting it a little higher. Like this card, like, by itself, like, would be a D tier if there were no Day Labor combos. Because there's so many Day Labor combos, like, it becomes, like, a high C tier card. Just because, like, on average, it's going to do a lot better. Probably it's better than Conjurer. God, I might even put this in the B tier. What the heck? It's just so bad by itself. I think I'm gonna put this here. I think this is about where I'm putting it at the top of C tier. I think that's about where I'm putting it because, like, by itself it's not great, but with the other Day Labor cards, it's so insane. It's so ridiculous. Seed Seller is quite good by itself. I think Seed Seller is quite good by itself. It gives you enough grain to compensate for things. Like, it's not great. Like, it's no Field Watchman, but it's fine. Like, it's not amazing. I think that, like, by itself, I put it in this like C tier of cards. That's like okay. Like I put it like it giving you a grain and then allowing you to take more grain is like pretty good. I put it like about here, like maybe a little bit above Pet Lover, like between Pet Lover and Animal Dealer is about right. It does something that's good but not great. Seed Trader. Seed Trader I almost never use. There are some games where Seed Trader is a monster when you have like an insane amount of food, but like typically it's not that good. Like it's very rare that you want to buy a veggie for 3 food. It's very, very rare. You have to have a lot of food to make that work. But the nice thing about this card is that you can buy it all at once. I think it's very situational, but like it can situationally be very good. It's very similar to Market Crier. It just fills a slightly different purpose. It's similar to Market Crier, but fills a slightly different purpose. It's probably slightly better, but you have to have a lot of food to make this work. Without a lot of food, this card's not very good. Sheepwalker. Sheepwalker is very good. It's a good way to get veggies. It is great. You have to be able to hold sheep. So firstly, you have to be able to hold sheep on your farm to be able to use this, which is kind of a pain. But given that you can hold sheep, turning sheep into veggies and boars is insane. Like getting like 4 sheep and then turning it into 2 breeding pairs is ridiculous. Turning it into like veggies to sow is crazy. Like it's a very good card. I think it's better than Sheepwalker. It's definitely like a low B, high C tier card. It's somewhere in that range. Yeah, I'll put it in the low B tier. I think that's about right. That seems about right to me, is right there. Sheep Whisperer. I almost never played this card. It's like fine. You have to want sheep a lot. Like I just don't know how you're going to know that you want sheep this bad on turn 1 of the game. I almost never played this card. I think that this card can be good. I probably don't play this card enough. Like the cow card I like a lot better because cows are like breeding cows is a lot of points. It's very easy to hold. Breeding sheep is pretty hard to hold. It's hard to hold like 8 sheep in your house. You have to have a pretty good reason to do that. It's good with Sheepwalker. Yeah, it's good with Sheepwalker. I just don't play it. Like I don't play it because like typically I want to take my sheep off the board. Like I want to deny other people sheep actions. I tend to not want to play this and guarantee it. Like Sheepwalker is just good regardless of this, and so I don't tend to play this and be like, yeah, I'm going to use Sheepwalker with it. Like it's good, but it's not like amazing. I think it's fine. Like it's a fine card. It's very situational. I don't think that I probably play this less often than I should. I honestly play Pig Breeder more than I play this card, or like these grain cards. I probably play them more. Probably in reality, it's like a little bit higher than this. But like I almost never play this card. I almost never ever am like, yeah, I want a lot of sheep like in the game, and I'm willing to sack an action for it. The cows I'm willing to sack an action for, but like Loom, you can just grab sheep later on. Like sheep are so plentiful. Cows, on the other hand, are really nice because they're not as plentiful as sheep are. So I just prefer that. Skillful Renovator. This card looks like it gives you a lot of wood. It doesn't give you as much wood as you want. There are some games where this gives you an insane amount of wood, and then it's crazy. But like typically what will happen is that you typically can't put off renos like that much because then otherwise people will reno on you and you're sad. Sometimes you can line this up to be like, you know, a few wood here and there. Like it can be a good amount of wood, but it doesn't come at a good time. That being said, giving you a wood and a clay when you play it is actually huge. Like without the clay when you play it, it's pretty not great. But with the clay when you play it, this enables a lot of cool stuff. I think that this card is like the epitome of the top of C tier. I think this is like the top of C tier. This is a card that's like good. Every once in a while it gives you a bunch of wood, but it's like not great. Like I'm not super duper happy about playing this card, but it's fine. Small Scale Farmer. Small Scale Farmer is a card that people overuse. It's very good when you're on 2-room strategies, which doesn't happen super often. It can give you like 4 wood early on, in which case it's like a worse like Constable or House Steward. But like sometimes it can also give you like 2 wood. Like it's not like super great. Like I don't think Small Scale Farmer is like that good. It can be good. It can give you a lot of wood, but typically you really want to build like in round 5 or 6. Like you typically don't want to delay that. And so for that reason, Small Scale Farmer is like, it's okay. It can, if you play on turn 1, it can give you like 3 or 4 wood, and that's pretty good. You know, I mean, but at 3 wood, it's not great. I disagree. That's almost Bonehead. I really disagree with that. I think it's way worse than Bonehead. Like the problem is that if you don't build rooms, you're putting yourself behind, and that's really bad. And you really want to build rooms. But like if you build rooms, then you're taking the benefit away, and that's also bad. Like that being said, it's still a good card. Like it's still a lot of wood. I value this. This is higher than Skillful Renovator. I think it's another like bottom of B tier card. I think it's good, but it's not great. And also going back to comment about Skillful Renovator being better than Master Builder. Yeah, I mean Master Builder. This card gives you a lot of resources. Like, it gives you a good amount of resources. Like, Master Builder, maybe I'm underrating a little bit. I can actually just drag Master Builder up. Master Builder's pretty good. It's pretty good because House Steward appears so frequently, it's pretty good. Yeah, I'll just do this. We'll just do this. I might put Master Builder up at the top of at the bottom of B tier too. Master Builder's not bad. Yeah, I'll leave it at the top of C. We'll do that for now. That's fine. Stable Architect. This is not a great card. It is playable, but it's not a great card. It's a combo with Muckrake. Very, very good with Muckrake, but it's a very situational card that's worth points. I don't play this super frequently. I think that probably, like, if it is worth points, it's pretty good. But sometimes you just need to fill spots in your farm, and when you need to fill spots in your farm, this card's pretty good. It just can give you a lot of points, and obviously it's good with Muckrake. But this is a way worse way to get points than a lot of other cards. I mean, it's probably around Hide Farmer level. Like, it's probably slightly better than Hide Farmer just because of the synergy with Muckrake. Like, it's probably a little bit higher than all these cards because of the synergy with Muckrake, but not by that much. It's probably somewhere around there. Like, I probably rank it above all these cards, but, like, it's very similar to Hide Farmer. It's a little bit better than Hide Farmer, I think, in general. Stable Master, another one of these there's a lot of these situational locks that are like not great, and it sort of belongs in that tier. That being said, having animal space I value pretty highly, but you do have to have the wood for it. It does build a stable, which is nice, but like which makes it good, I guess. But I honestly like the other ways of holding animals are better. Domestication Expert lets you hold an insane amount of sheep, and you don't have to have anything else set up, like you have to know wood or anything like that. Stable Expert is kind of similar to Domestication Expert in that regard, but you need the wood, and needing the wood actually makes it a little bit worse, but it's around all of those cards. Where are all those cards? All the sheep holding cards are in the... wow, I put them really high up. They're all in the B tier. Honestly... Well, I don't know why I feel a lot worse about this card than I do about, like, Domestication Expert and Animal Tamer. Animal Tamer giving you a freaking grain is huge. I mean, the only sheep is fine, though, because typically, like, you want... Like, sheep is the only animal early anyways, so that's fine. Stable Architect, like, it does give you a point, but typically that point is not really great. I mean, this card's pretty fine, honestly. Like, holding animals is pretty good. I think this card is worse than... this card's significantly worse than the other two. I value this card significantly worse than the other two ways of holding animals just because the one wood cost. Yeah, the one wood cost is a little bit awkward. And having to pay a wood to hold animals is like, you're essentially paying a wood for a stable, but the stable can hold lots of animals. I think probably it's like around the same level, but like slightly worse. Like probably Master Builder's a little bit better. Master Builder's just the gatekeeper of C tier for me. Just gatekeeping C tier. Yeah, we'll put it there for now. Actually, no, I'll put it a little lower. Actually, I think I like Manservant more. Yeah, I'm going to rearrange a couple things really quick. I'm going to put this below Manservant, like here. It's better than Frame Builder. Yeah, around here, that seems right. All right. Stable Hand. Stable Hand is a really awkward card. It's very seldom good. It is good with Hedgekeeper. Very, very good combo with Hedgekeeper, but unless you have Hedgekeeper, this card is pretty bad. It is probably worse on average than Bellfounder. It's probably worse than Geologist. It's better than this card, though. God, I have Adopted Parents ranked really low. I should probably rank Adopted Parents a little bit higher. Yeah, I'm going to move Adopted Parents up a little bit. I'll move it up a little bit. Wood Barterer? Where did I put Wood Barterer? I don't have Wood Barterer yet. Let me move this up. I'll put this above Geologist. I think Adopted Parents is better than Geologist. Baker, yeah, Baker I'm still not high on. So there's that. Stockman. Stockman is okay. I think that Stockman gives you a ton of animals. Stockman giving you a ton of animals is nice. Like building stables is really awkward. Like I'm not really high on building this many stables, but getting one of each animal for it is pretty nice. That tends to be worth it. I think this card is like... this card is actually pretty good. It's like a C tier card where like the effect can be pretty powerful. I think it is around the level of Carpenter is what I'm feeling. Yeah, it might be around like here. It's somewhere around there. I might rearrange this at some point. Is this better than Carpenter? This isn't better than Carpenter. It's not better than this. It's better than Fodder Planter. Yeah, probably. It's probably around there. I think that's fine. I'm fine with that. Oven Boy also. People complaining about my lower tier. Oh, I don't know why I have Reed Roof Renovator above these. That doesn't make any sense. Stable Hand. Yeah, I mean, Baking Bread is probably better than these most of the time. I'll move Baking Bread above this. I can't really justify moving it much higher, though, honestly. This is a little better, I guess. They're good with hard porcelain, yeah, but so many things are good with hard porcelain. Everything's good with hard porcelain, but it's only a one-card combo. Like it's like Bellfounder, right? Bellfounder is also good with exactly one or two cards, but like otherwise it's completely useless. And so you got to take the average, and on average they're not very good. All right, Stonecarver. Stonecarver is a card I like a lot. A lot of times with heavy occupation strategies, you want occupations that give you food, and this card is a great card that gives you food. It turns your Reedstone food into a Reed and 4 food, which is really nuts. There tends to be a lot of incidental ways to get stone, and so as a result, you can use that stone for food with this. Like, I think it's good. It's not an amazing card, but I value this card pretty highly. I think, honestly, this card I would rather have... I think I would honestly, it's honestly like above Layabout, but below Interior Decorator. It's somewhere around there, where like it's pretty good, but not like incredible. But like when the effect pops off, it's a very consistent amount of food. 3 food is a lot of food to convert a resource into. That is a lot of food. And stone, like you can get trickles of because of Reedstone food, so it's pretty good. It gives you a surprising amount of food. Stonecutter. Stonecutter is a card that's very good. There's a lot of good cards that you can use with Stonecutter. Like it's a very good card. It's very clearly a B tier card. I don't know how high in the B tier I value it, but it's a very good card. It's very, very good. Probably relatively high in the B tier. It's like between the Bricklayer and the Clay Hut Builder is about where I value it. I think it's worse than Bricklayer because like a stone discount can sometimes not be good, but there's a lot of miners that take stone. It has some combos with things. Like it's pretty good. I think about there is right. It's not a completely amazing card, but it's fairly good. I rank it pretty highly in this set. I think about there is good. Yeah. Am I overrating Stonecutter? I think I'm overrating Stonecutter a little bit. Just a little bit, I'm overrating it. I would definitely rather have Stonecutter than Harpooner. I'd definitely rather have Stonecutter than Porter. Definitely rather have it than Excavator. Then Clay Hut Builder is very close to me. Yeah, somewhere around there is good. Somewhere around there is good. I mean, Hard Porcelain is just a nuts card in general, too, so yeah. All right, Storehouse Keeper. Storehouse Keeper, quite good. Very good card. It does like have this problem that at higher ELO people take Reedstone food aggressively. But people don't take it that aggressively. Like people don't take this that aggressively. It tends to be pretty open. This card's very good. I think that this card goes. It's around a level of Stonecutter. It's very similar to me. The grain it gives you when it gives you it is really, really good. It might actually be below Game Catcher. It might be like around here. Like it does something similar to Excavator, but like it's more efficient by itself. It's a lot more efficient by itself than Excavator. Excavator is like less efficient by itself, but it's crazy with day labor combos. I might move Game Catcher up to. Game Catcher is just like super duper good. Yeah, somewhere around here is fine. That seems good. Sugar Baker, yeah, it gets a little bit more relaxed in the middle game. I agree. Reedstone Food gets a lot more relaxed in the middle game, which is good. Sugar Baker is contention for the worst card. I think it's worse than whatever this card is, but I don't care to think about it more. It's very bad. They're both very bad. Thresher. Thresher is very good. It's like a poor man's Field Watchman. It's very good. It can give you a lot of grain at the expense of being a lot of food, which like is fine. It's pretty good. Honestly, I'm pretty high on this card overall. I mean, higher than honestly not as high as Field Watchman, but like pretty high in the context of things. I think this card is better than Porter. Better than the animal holding cards, worse than Excavator. Yeah, somewhere around here is good. Somewhere around there. It is pretty good. It's a pretty good card. Get it. It gives you a lot of grain. If you want to play this card, it gives you a ton of grain because you're typically like taking plow actions, you're taking sows. Like it's very good. Also has the added benefit of being insane with hard porcelain. So it's just very good. It's a good card. Transactor is a very situational card that it can be very good. If you have a lot of guilds, this card's amazing. If you don't have a lot of guilds, it's not good at all. But so it's situational, but when you play it, it can be good. It's better than Stable Architect, I think. I think it's more applications than Stable Architect. It's probably like around Stable Architect. It's not like that much better. I'd probably rather have a Grain from Scythe Worker, but like it's very similar. It's like a fringe application that sometimes will get you victory points, and then otherwise it's whatever. Tutor. So in the original set, Tutor is quite bad because occupations are quite bad. Like you'll notice, like even in this set, like C and D, like there's a lot of cards in C and D tier. Like it's very bottom weighted, but there's a lot of synergies in this, right? Like even though these cards are more fringe, like you can use these cards in really cool ways, and there's lots of synergies in there. And there's lots of Ox synergies specifically that are added in CD. So Tutor goes from being like a pretty mopey card to being like pretty close to unplayable in the base set, barring like a few combos, to being very, very highly valued in the new set. There's so many cards that combo with Ox. There's so many minors that combo with Ox. You see those cards very frequently. There's a lot of Ox that you want to play in the mid-late game, so therefore Tutor becomes very good. I think that Tutor is in the B tier. I think it's around the level of Scholar, honestly. I think it's like around this level. I think Tutor is better than the forward cards, because like there's so many Ox that you want to play that are good. I think that it is, yeah, it's a little better than Scholar. I think by itself it's just a little bit better than Scholar. It's like, it's so good. It's so good. Like it increases your point cap a lot. You want to play a lot of Ox. There's so many cards that combo with it that I think it's good enough on average to be worth it. So yeah, so I think that, like, honestly, I'm pretty happy picking Tutor highly and expecting to play it on turn one, and then like just trying to play game plan around that. Sometimes it won't work out, and then you just don't play Tutor if that happens. If your draft gets bad, I don't think it's quite better. I think on average Plowmaker is a little bit better. I think on average Cultivator and Brushwood Collector are a little bit better. Tutor has a very high point ceiling, but it also like when it's bad, it's pretty bad. When you play it and you only get a couple points for it, it's very, very bad. So I'll put it there. Waterworker. Waterworker is a card that is surprisingly good. Like I said, there are not many cards that add read. This is one of the few cards that add a lot of read to the game. And it adds enough read that you can typically afford to build a lot with it. You can typically build BMW with it. It's quite good. Also, this has the added benefit of being a day labor card because it works on day labor, and it gives you read in other places too. So like, and right now there's some question about the implementation of this card, because right now it gives you the read before you get to do your day labor, so you can combo with Cottager to like build rooms with the read, which is completely insane. This card is very, very good. A lot of people sleep on this card. It's very good. The read is typically quite rough to do. This fixes a lot of it, and it combos with a lot of cards. This is one of the few cards that I think makes fishing like okay. If you can get 2 read every time you fish and then get some read other places, it's like okay. But like, because it works in so many action spaces, it's so good. It gives you so much access to read. I think that honestly, I think this card is like the top of B tier. I find the read from this card to be quite excellent. And the fact that combos on day labor also makes it completely insane. So I find this card to be quite good. I think I put it at the top of B tier. I don't think it's quite a plow driver, but I think it is better than Cultivator and some of the other forward cards. It's just really good. I think it's better than Brushwood Collector too, because it just gives you read and doesn't take wood out of the game. So yeah, I think it's pretty good. Wall Builder. Wall Builder is a card that I very seldom use. I think it can be good, but it's like so much worse than Roughcaster. Roughcaster gives you the food immediately, and typically you build in clay a lot. Yeah, so some of the cards that I grabbed it from a place where the text might be a little bit different, but yeah, it's still the same thing. It's the same card. So yeah, like it's not a great card. I very rarely play. I think there are situations where you can play it, but it's just not very good. I think it's better than like, it's better than this card. Maybe Cube Cutter is actually better than these cards. I actually think Cube Cutter, like, giving you a few points is, like, pretty good. I don't know. We'll put it about there. That's about right. I'm not going to fret about that too much. Winter Caretaker. Winter Caretaker is super good. This card gives you so many veggies. It gives you grain. Like playing this in the late game and getting a grain and a veggie for it, really nice. And you can get grain 2 veggies from it. Like, it's such a good card. I honestly, this is also like a top of B tier card, I think. We're going to definitely mess around with the tiers a little bit, but this card is really, really good. I think that this card is... Yeah, I think it's about here. It just gives you so many crops. Like, it gives you the veggie. It gives you so many veggie. Like, it gives you the grain. It gives you so many veggies off of it. You can do so much stuff with the veggies. Like, it's really good. It's kind of like a poor man's grocer, but, like, in some ways it's better because it gives you the grain immediately and, like, gives you veggies pretty consistently. Whereas, like, grocer, you gotta dig pretty deep to get to the veggies. So I think that Winter Caretaker is actually quite good. I might put it a little lower, but it's pretty good. It's always consistently impressed me. I'm never unhappy to have it because it's a grain and like takes care of all my veggies, which is quite good. Wood barter. Wood barter is so good. This card is very frequently a ridiculous amount of wood. It gives you wood at the right time too. It gives you wood on the build spot. It gives you wood on fences. Additionally, if it's a wood heavy game, you can use it very similar to Brushwood Collector, and just convert the wood into reed, which is insane. This card's very clearly an A tier card. I think it's a pretty high up A tier card. Like, it gives you wood at the right time. It's better than Bonehead for sure. It's definitely better than Bonehead. I honestly think this card might be better than Field Watchman. I think I value this card higher than Field Watchman and higher than Collector here. I don't think it's as good as Roof Baluster, but it's close. Is Cottager this good? Looking at Cottager, my Cottager placement's a little high. I think I'm going to move this around in this way. I'm going to put this here. I'm going to move Cottager down a little bit. I'm going to move Grocer down too. Games can be pretty food tight. Yeah, something like this is good. This card is so good. Wood barter is so good. It gives you room. It gives you wood. It gives you wood when you need it. It can give you 8 to 10 wood. It gives you 8 to 10 wood exactly when you need it. And that's completely insane. At a minimum, it should give you like 6 wood, which is nuts. And it can give you reed too, which is crazy. But yeah, it's very good. Wood Collector, classic wood card gives you 5 wood. I value this higher than the other 4 wood cards because it gives you the wood without the consequence of maybe giving someone else points. It's also playable in the late game. You can play this card later on in the game off like a Scholar or something like that and get 5 wood later on, and that's fine too. You're not obligated to play this card early. It's very flexible. I think that I like it more than Cultivator because it gives you the wood immediately, whereas Cultivator you have to work a little bit for the wood. Comparing it to Furniture Maker is kind of interesting. It's very similar to Furniture Maker and Bonehead. Bonehead might be Wood Collector's maybe a little bit better than Bonehead. They're all very similar. All these Bone Collector and whatever this card. Wood Collector, Bone Cutter, Bonehead. Okay, we can't say words anymore. It's that time of the day. And Furniture Maker, like Furniture Maker's a little bit worse because it takes a little bit more setup. But Bonehead, Wood Collector, both very, very good. I'll put them about the same way. Yeah, that sounds good to me. Wood Cutter, okay, I thought I was like, wait, did I switch the cards? Wood Cutter, on the other hand, is significantly worse. Typically, like, even though it gives you wood when you take wood, which is good, you don't, like, I can't explain it, but it's not that good. Like, it's not that insane. I mean, it gives you a good trickle of wood throughout the game, but it's never, like... It's hard to explain why this card is not as good as it is. Like, it typically will give you, like, 6-ish wood, but it's at kind of weird times. It's not, like, immediately. Like, you have to take wood actions for it to be good, and, like, it doesn't... turning 3 wood into 5 wood is so much better than turning 3 wood into 4 wood. And this does because 5 wood is exactly enough to build 1 room. This card doesn't quite do that, so you still have to take 2 wood actions in order to build a room with it. Like, that being said, it still is a good amount of wood. I think it's similar to Small Scale Farmer in this regard. I think it's a card that is all right, but not great. It's a card that's all right, but not good. It's so hard to explain why it's not that good. I mean, it probably is 6 wood throughout the game. And 6 wood is fine, but it's at spots where you're already taking wood. And, like, the wood cards that are good are really, really good. Like getting 2 additional wood from every time you take a wood, which is on Wood Cart, is good because A, it's a minor improvement that you're sort of playing incidentally, and B, it's good because it turns like mopey, like 2 wood into 4 wood is really, really good. 2 wood into 3 wood is like not that good. It's very good with a big family game. I agree with that. Like, this is very good. Like, this card's way better with a big family game. It's still better than any of the cards in C tier, I think. Like, there's times where I would play cards in C tier over wood Woodcutter. I think Woodcutter, like, it gets slept on a little bit. Like, it's still an okay card. I think that it's overrated by a lot of people. I think a lot of people take it too highly. A lot of people play it too highly. Like, honestly, I just don't play Woodcutter that often because I don't want to lock myself into, like, playing that, like, taking that many wood actions that early on to get the wood from it. It's not as helpful early on. It's kind of like the reason that I don't like Charcoal Burner as much is because you don't know when you're getting the wood. Here, you do know when you're getting the wood, but it's only one additional wood every time, and you have to take the wood actions for it. I don't know. It's very hard to explain why it's not that good. I can't put it. I have to put it around Small Scale Farmer. I think that's a good comparison because Small Scale Farmer has a lot of variance to it. Wood Collector is a fair amount of wood, but it's not that insane. I think this is about the right spot for it. Finally, we have 2 more cards. All right, we got Wood Expert. Wood Expert is so good. This card is so good. You can draft around this card and have it be completely insane. It can very frequently be like 8 to 10 wood. I think it's a little bit worse than like Furniture Maker. It's a little bit worse than Furniture Maker because it's a lot easier to make Furniture Maker wood for everything, whereas this can only work with improvements. But it's pretty easy to draft around this card and make it pretty good. I think I put it like a little bit higher than Cultivator. I think a little bit higher than Cultivator is where I put it. It's like pretty good. It gives you 2 wood. It can be like it can be 10 wood. Like, one nice thing about this card, by the way, that you should keep in mind is that you can always build joinery with it for 2 stone and a food, which is insane. So you should always try and build joinery when you play this card. There's a lot of good wood miners that you can draft around with this card that make it really good. That being said, it does take some working around. Sometimes it won't be very good, but I think it's pretty insane. It's definitely better than the other cards that are wood cards. But yeah, food problems can also be a huge deal too. But it's a very interesting card. It's very good. I just think it's a little bit worse than the other wood cards, other than the 4 wood cards. I think it's a little bit better than that. But it's better than like Furniture, for example. All the wood cards are very similar to me. They just have small differences that are small tweaks. Finally, we have Wind Hut Extender. Wind Hut Extender is maybe it's one of the top cards. It's better than Childless. I honestly think this card might be better than Begging Student. I think it's so stupid. The read cost reduction is actually just so insane for some reason. For whatever reason, reducing the read by 1 is so dumb. Like it makes building the room so insanely easy. And then additionally, like, you just get to build a 5 so easily later on in the game. Like, round 8 is not late enough for this. It's really, really, really not late enough for this. Assistant Tiller on average is probably better. But like between those 3, it's very, very close. Between Assistant Tiller, Wind Hut Builder, and Begging Student, it's very close. I think that this is my ranking. I think I put Assistant Tiller first because the day labor combos are just too nuts. I think Wind Hut Extender is second because it just does so much on its own, and then Begging Student third because it does so much on its own. Like I think Wind Hut Extender is more frequently gonna give you really good situations in games, and that's insane to me. But I mean, obviously they're all 3 good. If you pick between them, you just cry with your money. You wipe your tears with your money. That's the win from the game, hopefully from you making the right decisions. So, all right. We got through 114 cards. That's crazy. I'm going to go through this and just finalize the tier list. And yeah, if you have any comments about things, please let me know while I'm going through that to the chat. I'm going to make an S tier here. We're going to do the same thing that we did in the other tier list and make an S tier. Hold on, let me insert a tier above. Let's do it. Add a row above. We're going to make an S tier here for cards I think are S tier, and we're going to put some of these in an S tier. We're going to make one more tier here. I think it's going to even it out. Yeah, all these are very clearly S tier here. Yeah, I think Cottager is not quite an S tier, but like, this card is insane. This card's so good. Yeah, Puppeteer is great. Puppeteer is really good. Puppeteer is very, very good. I like Puppeteer a lot. It's quite good. Then in A tier, I'm going to put like all these cards. Where's a good cutoff point for A tier, I wonder? I also need to sort between these tiers as well. Maybe the forward cards are a good cutoff. Is Charcoal Burner worse than the forward cards? Let me think about this more. So all these cards, this feels like a good A tier to me. Yeah, I think this is fine. This feels like good cutoff. House Steward feels like good cutoff for this. Furniture feels a little bit higher than House Steward to me. House Steward feels a little bit worse, and with Constable, like Constable's a card to keep in mind, but yeah, it feels worse to me. And Charcoal Burner feels a little bit worse than both those cards, but still comparable. Clay cards. Game Catcher is a card that maybe Game Catcher's like here. Actually, I value Game Catcher. Game Catcher's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty insane. This card very frequently is like so nuts. Game Catcher. Then these two cards, Yeppers. Yeah, the B tier is about right for this. I can't in my right mind put Small Scale Farmer and wood what's it called in B tier. Although this needs more cards, honestly. Like I should be moving this up a little bit. I should be moving this up and separating in tiers a little bit here. This feels better to me. Like Skillful Renovator, I feel like is a big drop below Manservant in terms of the playability. That feels right to me. Somehow that feels right to me. Yeah, and then there's like big drop in playability, then goes Skillful Renovator, Stable Master. Yeah, this feels right to me. Okay. Potato Harvester is still good. Yeah, Traveling Player's card. I still think Carpenter being here is fun. Maybe Carpenter's a little higher. Maybe I should be a little higher on Carpenter. Honestly, not that high. Potato Harvester's really impressed me, but it should probably be lower than Carpenter. Yeah, something around this is good. Then we have these cards, Stone. Then we get to Pet Lover. Yeah, then we get to some mopey stuff. These clay cards are really awkward. These like really awkward clay cards here. Maybe Clay Carrier is actually better. Clay Carrier is the better of these cards. I think Clay Carrier can be quite good. Can give you a lot of clay, but it's not like that much better than these by any means. Like it's not that much better. I think, yeah, Pet Lover the Green Guy is great, but it's like kind of a, I don't know, Pet Lover's fine. I mean, it's in a fine zone. This is a fine zone here. Maybe Layabout's worse than all these. Layabout seems worse than all these here. I think I'd put Layabout a little bit down. Yeah, 3 Food's good. I agree. 3 Food is good. The Grain's good, but like, it's only good in a food type game. It's only good in a food type game. Then we got this. Yes, Mushroom Collector about here is good. Clay Dudes, Clay Plaster about there is fun. I might move Clay Plaster up, actually. I like Clay Plaster a little bit more. Yeah, I'll move Clay Plaster up a little bit. I think it's a good enough effect that it's fine. I'll move it up a little bit. To Clay, Stable Guy, I'll move up a little bit as well. I think I play this guy a little bit more frequently than these cards. Schnapps Distillery, I play a little bit more frequently. It's a little bit better on average. Resource Recycler probably also should be moved up too, because when this card is good, it's really good. Probably it should be a lot higher. Yeah, probably Resource Recycler should be a little bit higher. Resource Recycler, like, when it's good, is, like, really great. Maybe about here is good. About here seems right to me. Yeah, like, all these awkward cards here. And then Master Bricklayer has such high variance on it. Master Bricklayer is, like, so frequently bad. Pastor, I feel, yeah, maybe Mushroom Collector over Pastor. This is a little bit worse, I think. This seems good. And then finally we get to the D tier. I think, honestly, like, these cards I can move up a little bit. Like, so we have, like, all these weird grain cards, like these cards that give you a little bit of resources here, and it cuts off at exactly the point where, okay, now we're in the very situational point cards, and that's the cutoff for me between C and D tier. So now we have situational points cards. We have cards that are not great. This card I probably can move up. I think this card is, like, the problem is that this card is not frequently very good. Like, it's only good when you have grain stuff going on. Yeah, maybe here is fine. Maybe I'm just moving Lutenist down. Lutenist in this card and this card I'm just moving down a little bit. Yeah, I'll move these cards down a little bit. This looks a little better to me. Freemason's here. Poor Freemason. This card I am definitely sleeping on, but it really has been so, like, I never have wanted to play this card, really. I've never wanted to play the Branchwood Collector. It can be good. It can be a good amount of wood. Like, probably I'm sleeping on this card a lot. It's probably supposed to be quite a bit higher, but I just can't make it work. Or, like, it just doesn't work for my play style, and so maybe this card's supposed to be higher, but I can't make it work for me. Yeah, Grain Guy is good. D tier for Bean Counter is too high. Is Bean Counter or Sugar Trader worse? I don't actually know. Oh, also, we missed the band card somehow. Somehow we missed frickin' what is it called? We missed our band card. No Braggart. Yeah, Braggart band card. Let's talk about Braggart really quick. Braggart band card, because getting points, it's not going to show on the screen. That's fine. But yeah, getting points for improvements is too good. It's too high of a point ceiling. But yeah, Braggart is stupid. Stupid good card. Might be worse than Assistant Tiller, honestly, though. I might take Assistant Tiller over Braggart. Assistant Tiller is really good. I might take a lot of the A tier cards over Braggart, honestly. But yeah, Braggart's pretty dumb. Or the S tier cards, I guess, now. Yeah, I need to play with this card more. I honestly need to play with this card more. And this Reed card, Well Builder. Yeah, this feels good. All right, this feels good. This being low is fine. Maybe this can move up a little bit. Maybe I'm sleeping on Adopted Parents a little bit. I just very rarely play Adopted Parents. I very rarely play it. Like, it can be good. It's just, like, you just have to have so much food. The situation just doesn't line up where I'm just like, oh, yeah, Adopted Parents is great here. Like, it just so rarely lines up where you have that much food. I mean, maybe it's better. Maybe it should be a little bit higher. Maybe it should be, like, up here or something like that. Like, it probably should be up here. It probably should be up here along with these cards. Like, it probably should be a little bit higher in D tier, but not, like, super high. And then anything else that I feel like should be changed? No, it looks pretty good. Any changes, chat? I think this looks pretty good to me. Yeah, this looks pretty good. All right, I think that's my tier list. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, because that helps out the channel a lot. Also, comment. Are there any changes that you would make, or is there anything that's too low, anything that's too high? Please feel free to comment in the comment section down below. Until next time, I'm Econ Sean, and I'll see you next time.